Welcome to the June 20, 2023 regular business board meeting of the Lower Merion Board of School Directors. This meeting is being live streamed and video recorded with sound for public broadcast. All participants joining via the webinar will need to use the chat feature, which will be enabled during audience recognition. If you're attending this meeting in person, you should be aware that other attendees may be recording this meeting as permitted by the Sunshine Act. This means, however, that any comments you might make in your seat, sort of to each other, may be recorded. So I just wanted to put that out as a observation, just to let people know that that is a possibility. The board believes it's in its best interest and the best interests of the students of the district to hear comments from district residents. An opportunity will be given later in the meeting for public comment, both in person and through the chat feature, which will be read by our solicitor. At last month's meeting, there was unfortunately a great deal of audience members shouting from their seats and other disruptive comments. We're just asking for our audience members not to do that this evening. I think it's really important that we role model for our children appropriate civil conversation. We try to be respectful of the everyone in the audience, and we ask the same in response. Before I turn over the meeting to Ms. Schaefer, I wanted to note first that Dr. Sautner is joining us via teleconference. And also I wanted to acknowledge Dr. Stephen Yanni, who's with us here tonight and whose appointment as the district superintendent of schools will be further along in tonight's agenda. So now I'm turning it over.
Thank you, Ms. Klein, and good evening, everyone. Before we start tonight's presentations, I also wanted to acknowledge some individuals that have joined us this evening. We have some notable appointments in our HR agenda this evening, among the many stellar candidates that are reflected on it. I do note that in the audience joining us tonight is Mr. Ty Ross, who is our recommended candidate for the Kenwood principal position. Also, many of you know he was here as a Lower Merion High School assistant principal for several years before departing for a brief period of time, only to return to us, and we're excited about having him rejoin our team. We have Dr. Christine Eagles, who will be joining the Gladwin team as an assistant principal. We have Eugenia Koo, who will be joining the Bala Kenwood team as an assistant principal, and Ian Rose, who will be joining the Belmont Hills team as an assistant principal. So we are so happy to have you here this evening. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here, and we are very much looking forward to you being part of our team. And I had the pleasure of meeting every one of them, and I think I'm excited about their wealth of experience and what they'll bring to each of those teams and to the district as a whole. So thank you so much. And next I will be going to the podium to present. You're leaving? Just when it's getting good. And this is a little nerve-wracking in front of my future boss, but here we go. This evening, there's a couple updates on the board agenda that have been conversations we've been having over the course of this year and even prior to this year. And one of the updates that we have is the healthy start times. I like to always start the presentation with the why. Why are we looking at healthy start times? For those that may have just joined the conversation with us, we know the science behind this is that adolescents especially have a shift in their biological clocks that compromises their ability to get a good night's sleep when coupled with the start times that we typically see for high school and middle school age students. So because of that conflict, many districts, including Lower Merion, have been looking at ways to address that by shifting the start time so that that those times align more closely with the needs, the adolescent sleep needs of our students. I will say, and I'll say this at the end, we know that this isn't the solution that's going to result in all of our students getting the best night's sleep possible. We know that there are layers to ensuring that students get sleep, and we're going to commit through our wellness committee and other measures to ensure that we're reinforcing what do good sleep hygiene practices look like. So it's not just about starting time, but what do those practices look like, because we are invested in the overall wellness of our students and our staff. So those are measures that we want to take moving forward, and not just make it about a shift in the day. As just a brief overview, there are a number of meetings that we've publicly presented about the shifts that we've been looking at over the course of this year, although the work has been over the last 5 and 10 years that we've investigated this. So this is a reflection of the meetings we've had to date this year. And then again, just as an orientation item, these are our current schedules. The high school, middle, and elementary school are tiered. We have 3 tiers, and that's necessary because of our transportation system. And you can see the variables there are start time, end time, and the total time of the school day. And I'll get into a little bit of how we started looking at ways in which we could make changes. That resulted in the initial recommendation that the board endorsed back in March. Those changes are reflected there. The major changes are middle school being in that first tier, high school being in the second tier, and elementary in the third tier. And you can see how the start and end times have changed, as well as the length of the school day for high school and elementary school. Following that initial sort of approval, it was conditioned upon some requested modifications. The board asking the administration to consider these additional modifications, which I'm going to go through quickly. And this update, we did do an update on these particular modifications on May 15th, so that presentation is also available for those that want to just another recap. So the time adjustments that were requested were to consider ending the elementary school day 15 minutes earlier than the proposed time of 4:05. We did get a lot of feedback about that time being late in the day and compromising potentially other activities and concerns related to that. And then also coupled with considering a slightly earlier middle school start time if necessary to ensure that no school ends after 4 p.m. I'm going to go through really quickly a recap of that May meeting in which we looked at 3 alternatives to meet those objectives. One was simply a shift of 15 minutes. So you can see the easiest way to look at this is to see that the 8 a.m. middle school start time moved to 7:45. And similarly, on the other end, you can see the 4:05 end time for elementary school moved to 3:50. So it's simple math. Everything shifted by 15 minutes. The concerns that we still had with that were that that middle school was starting before 8 o'clock, and that there was a slight increase in the elementary day, which compromises teacher planning and preparation that exists currently. So those were some concerns that were highlighted. A second alternative was simply a length of a day reduction so that you could maintain that 8 o'clock middle school start time, but you can see how that changes the length of the school day, which from a staff and administration perspective, it wasn't a recommended change because of that decrease in the length of the school day at all levels. It also didn't necessarily help that that elementary school start time, which remained at 9:20. So the alternate 3 reflects a combination of both a shift and a reduction. So again, we were trying to play with those variables to meet the board's objectives of the start and end times, but also to maintain as much as possible the length of the school day. So alternative 3 was a little bit better at some of those things. Here's what we shared out, again, just to see it all together. You can see some red boxes where there were still concerns, some green highlighting that reflects that's not too bad in terms of those changes. Since that time, and I'll talk through some of the steps that we took to get to the fourth alternate that's reflected here. And what it does primarily, because we did get feedback from that presentation in May about that middle school start time. So we looked really hard at ways in which we could maintain that 8 o'clock start time and still try to address some of those other goals that the board had set for us. And I'm going to talk about how we get to this because there are some compromises. But what it does do a little bit better is it doesn't quite reduce the length of the school day as much at the high school level as those other alternates did. It still shaves off time at the middle school level, which is, none of this is ideal. We're not feeling like that this is necessarily in service of the instructional time, but it is in service of the other goal of student wellness. And finally, what it does at the elementary level, you can see, is it really just shifts the day 10 minutes forward from the current day, established day. So the length of the day remains the same for elementary. It doesn't run too far into that 4 o'clock hour, and it only creates a minor shift in the morning. So how did we do that? Is maybe some questions that people have, because we've talked a lot about having that 35 or 40-minute corridor between tiers. And so what happens is, what do you start to compromise when you're able to shave off some minutes? So what we had to do was adjust how we changed bus routing. And one of the more significant changes is that while we had moved to try to get AM and PM routes the same, so if I get on bus 4 in the morning, I go home on bus 4 in the afternoon, and depending on what age you're at, it's a lot more consistent and reinforcing and reassuring to know that your kindergartner is getting on the same bus in the morning that they're getting off in the afternoon. There's also the relationships that develop between drivers and the students on the bus, and sometimes when we institute assigned seating, having different buses run AM and PM, it creates inefficiencies, it diminishes the potential effectiveness of that, and arguably it does increase some safety concerns for us. That said, by uncoupling the AM and PM runs, we were able to realize a few minutes in that daytime tier that allowed us to do that 8 to 8:30. The other compromise it creates for us here, and we'll look at it a little bit closer when I get to the details of the schedule, is that we have about 6 or 7 runs that between middle school and high school, out of 59, that will, right now, as scheduled, will arrive between 8:25 and 8:29. That's an 8:30 start time. So again, we're looking at ways in which we can minimize that impact, if in fact it becomes an impact, because we're really just dealing with some unknowns right now, where we've routed based on the students we have, but those circumstances could change. We could also bring on, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about the realities of, if we're able to hire more drivers, that might reduce that tight schedule there between middle school and high school. But again, those are sort of what allows us to do this, is that you run a really tight schedule at the high school, and we've talked with the building leadership at the high school level to say, how can we adjust for that? Are there ways in which we can obviously ensure that students aren't marked late if they are late because of a transportation system adjustment? Or do we have to ultimately go back and say high school starts at 8:35 it wouldn't change the routing, but what it would do would be cut down, again, the length of the school day to 30 minutes as opposed to the 25 that's proposed here. So we are, welcome. We are continuing to refine that tier in particular, knowing that those are the compromises that we are putting out there and are doing so with our eyes open, knowing that you know, there's some challenges with this revised schedule. However, overall, it probably best meets the objectives of the board in terms of that 8 a.m. start time ideal and the later end or the earlier end time for elementary. So I know that this is very difficult for everyone to read, but this will be posted. I thought it's important to give context, you know, additional context to what the realities of the schedule are. Because what we had earlier presented was this, we presented the earliest student bus pickup time, and then we said start time. So I think there was the potential that people had in their minds that everyone is closer to that earlier, you know, initial start time. So for example, Black Rock Middle School earliest pickup time is 7:06. However, the latest pickup time is 7:44. So there's a range of almost 45 minutes between the first pickup and the last pickup. So not everyone is, you know, in that window of, you know, the earliest pickup time. So having these details allows, you know, all of us to see that there are ranges associated with all of these, with these tiers, both on the front end or the pickup and the drop-off in the afternoon. So there's middle schools, there's high schools, and elementary schools reflected here. Again, with the high schools, I would point out, you can see that there are a few buses, one bus in particular that runs at 8:29 right now, estimated drop-off time for a student attendance time, which is the actual start time, and I meant to add that. So that's a concern. And then where I've noted at the bottom, one of the adjustments that may further need to be made, depending on how we live into this, is that you might need to reduce that length of day slightly to accommodate those late arrivals. Again, here's the view from an elementary standpoint, plugging in that alternate 4 with all of the details of the routing, drop-off, et cetera. So the final two pieces of the modifications that were requested were around providing potentially before care supports for elementary students and their families. With this alternate 4, because of the 10-minute shift, we will continue to partner with our on-site provider to see if they can provide other options for families in terms of supports in the morning. But because of the relatively minor shift, this proposal doesn't include you know, a supportive option that the district would provide during that 10-minute time frame. The final piece is ensuring staff choice, voice, and agency, which, as we've shared before, we've worked closely with our LMEA leadership to keep them updated on the adjustments that have been made. We are intending to survey staff in the fall based on whatever the final established schedules are, so that we can do our best to understand and accommodate where possible any changes that or hardships that may be created by that schedule for our staff, whether that means you know, looking for opportunities at different levels, or you know, it's a little bit different than our K-8 transition, which I've talked about before, where we were a better position to try to accommodate staff because of all of the transitions that were happening. This will be a little more difficult, but I think it's really important and something that we value as a leadership team to make sure that we are trying to meet the needs of staff in situations like this, where the transition may impact their their family situation or work-life balance. Finally, the schedules also will be, one of the other things we'll seek to understand from staff is the impact that the schedule might have on their ability to support our extracurriculars. So if they were a coach and now that because of the timing that might impact their ability to continue to take on that position, we would want to try to assess that sooner rather than later so we can make sure that we're supporting those student activities as we move into this revised schedule in 24-25. And, if there are further adjustments to the schedule, then we would want additional time to ensure broader staff representation, if that were the case, which at this point is not recommended. So finally, some of the other refinements and commitments, just to summarize, some of the things that I've already said, but and I've said previously, our transportation efforts and refinements are ongoing. We want to take a look at our policy and consider ways in which some refinements may allow for us to find some additional minutes in those tiers. Again, the idea would, if we realize some minutes, we want to put that back into the instructional day. That would be our goal. Shifting to a new routing system might afford us some opportunity to realize some, again, minutes that might allow for further refinement. And then, as I mentioned earlier, another year of hiring might allow us, again, the ability to put additional routes in place so that those constraints or those concerns that I noted would be, we would be in a better position to mitigate them. The review and revision of schedules, again, we've been sort of talking from the standpoint of what can you fit in the constraints we have, and what we want to do is a further examination of those schedules. Obviously, we've committed recently to a pretty significant reimagination of schedules, K-8, but this is going to necessitate even further revision with that additional reduction of time, and then also at the secondary level, though we have in our building leadership teams have worked out schedules that align with this proposed schedule, shaving a minute or two off class time and transition time, so we can make it work, but having additional time to figure out and finalize those refinements is how we will use this next year. It's also, and we'll talk a little bit about how that review of schedules will also serve additional purposes such as staffing and other measures. And again, we'll talk about that in later presentations. One of the other pieces we just want to confirm is the supervision needs. Now that the order has changed, do we need to shift some supervision from one level to another? Because unlike now where high school buses are lined up and kids pour out of the buildings and jump on buses, the tiering or the way in which buses arrive will be different, so we need to think about some supervision pieces there. We don't think that's a significant expense. We just need to make sure we align our staffing practices with this adjustment. Again, we talked about staff voice is work we have for the fall. Beyond start times, and I said this as part of the introduction, is how do we ensure that not only are we just shifting a time, but we're trying to embed better practices for our students when it comes to sleep hygiene. And then finally, another important item that we will include in our work next year is to plan to evaluate the impact. So how does this shift, how hopefully, ideally met the needs of increasing opportunities for sleep for students, and have we been successful at that? And what other information might we learn from our students and staff that have lived through this change? So those are other pieces that we will be putting in place next year, together with the communication plan, to ensure that our community continues to be aware. I know that there are some people out here, although I've talked about this a lot, that still maybe aren't aware that this change is coming. So we want to be certain to brand what we're doing so that it becomes a talking point and something we can continue to refer back to in our communications, so that not just our staff and our students, but our community is ready for that shift. Are there questions?
I would like to open it. Ms. Kalish?
I want to start by saying thank you to you and to the staff at large who's worked on this, because I know nobody's going to be 100% happy with any option, but we gave you a really big, complicated problem, and people are always sending us emails and talking to us, telling us to think more creatively, and you guys have thought really creatively and found every second, and I really appreciate that effort. My specific nitty-gritty question is looking at those two slides that talked about timing details for elementary and high school, which are slides 16 and 17. Nope, not 16 and 17, 15 and 17. Some of the earliest bus arrivals will be 5 or 10 minutes before the times that the doors to the buildings are open, and I was just wondering if there was a supervision plan. I don't want a couple of elementary school buses worth of children just kind of hanging out, not by themselves. That's not something I think we want to be doing.
Yeah, and we've talked about that, and I noted that supervision plan is something we're continuing to work on, but from our standpoint, when a bus arrives, that bus can be offloaded into the school, and the doors would open to accommodate those students that arrive at that time.
Okay.
That may be different than, parent drop-off, because we do have, the management piece that we have to ensure that the supervision is ready, and because this would be a constant, we would know when those buses arrive that those students would have that necessary supervision during that transition time. So we'll add more detail to that, but
I appreciate that flexibility. Yeah. That sounds like a really good solution. I just had to put it out there because the numbers weren't quite numbering. Thank you.
Ms. Schaffmeister?
Thanks. Echo Shayna's or Michelle. Kalish. I call you Shayna. Kalish. Sentiment about how you've worked so hard, and I appreciate this plan. I'm wondering on the 7:06 early bus pickup, are these students on it the entire time, or are they arriving early, or is it a mix?
It's a mix. I can't, that's a good clarification on this. This doesn't mean that 7:06 bus is the same bus that's a 7:44. So that 7:06 bus may be 7:40.
Okay.
Because that's the earmarked arrival time, but I would have to go into those actual transportation bus routes to tell you exactly what time. So those aren't intended to be paired. That's a good
Okay, and when we
question.
were talking about the arrival of the high schoolers at right almost just before the bell goes. Now I know that one thing we have going for us is the kids don't use the lockers in the high school. I don't know if Harriton does the same thing, but LM is, and I'm just wondering how that's going to affect kids who have to get their breakfast at the school. And will that be a thing? Can we just, every first class of the day has an extra 5 minutes? I know we're already losing time, but can it be that is a transition period for the students?
Yeah.
That teachers can allow kids to bring food into the classroom and those who are arriving late.
And those are the details that we're still working through. I think there are some options there. Ideally, we're able to, again, I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some relief with maybe a driver or two additional routes. I'm not going to hold my breath. I know that that's not necessarily a guarantee, but I think there are opportunities for refinement within that 5-minute window that we will look at. Certainly, the building teams are aware that that's a concern. We wouldn't ever want that to be like a penalizing, something that would penalize students, especially if they need breakfast, and we'll want to accommodate for that.
Last question is, I'm now sitting on a task force with the township to deal with making it more walkable and that, and I'm wondering, is there a possibility that we can work with the township to get more sidewalks in so that it might reduce the number of stops on some of the busier roads? Because it is, with busing, it is the stop times that really affect how much, so just to put that out there, if there's something we could do to work with over the next 2 summers or something. Okay.
For sure. I think anytime we can partner with the township to do work in service of our students is a good opportunity. So.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson?
Thank you again for all the hard work that's gone into this, not just this year, but all along. The question I have is on the middle school arrivals, actually. They arrive, let's see, the school doors open at 7:45. Are they allowed to go in at 7:45?
Yeah, that was I intended to answer that question, but I may not have been clear enough. So when buses arrive, that is that supervision piece that we're still figuring out how we do that, because if there's an arrival, because of the system we've created, we want to make sure that there's supervision available for those students. What we're trying to clarify right now, though, is that doesn't mean that all doors are open at 7:40, because we would need to make sure that we have the right amount of supervision at that time. So 7:45 is the time that doors would open. 7:40, if buses are arriving, we're going to need to make sure that we have a supervision plan in place for those students that arrive on those buses before that designated start time, or that designated door open time. So that's a management thing that we'll need to work through next year.
Dr. Sautner, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Thank you. So I guess my 2 questions were already asked around the drop-off times that might be before the school doors open. I'm wondering if the buses at the high school level that might show up, might come in at 8:29 are sort of similar to the late parent drop-offs in the front circle, where if you make it right at 8:30, you can squeeze in the door. And if you're at 8:31, you have to go through the office. So would those students then just be able to go straight through because it wasn't?
Well, I think that's what we have to
it's in the back.
streamline, is so that there's a difference between a route that we impose on a student and say that this is how you get there, and how we try to mitigate the hardship of that, versus if I'm late because however I get there is different. So I see there's some distinctions, and our goal would be to ensure that our transportation system isn't impacting students in a negative way. So that could be one solution.
Right. And after I asked that question, I realized that they're coming in different doors anyway, so they wouldn't be, sort of crossing paths. So I want to reiterate what some of the other folks said about thank you for, we asked to kind of condense the time so that no school would start before 8 and no school would end after 4. And so I really appreciate the time and effort, and I think that I'm not alone. So from a procedural perspective, we do not need to take an actual, like a full vote at the later part of our agenda.
Correct.
However, I would like to take a vote of sort of a voice of support for this new recommendations with these specific times in the fall, when we go through and do the policy update that would include changes in the school start time, that this vote would reflect that the times that would then be changed into that policy. So specifically to start middle school at 8, high school at 8:30, elementary school at 9:10, with middle school ending at 2:35, high school ending at 3:15, and elementary school ending at 3:45. So I'm gonna.
So you're asking for a resolution to support the times that you just set forth?
Correct, thank you. Do I have a motion to,
So moved.
do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? No, no abstentions. So resolution passed.
So I'm just going to continue on and provide you with a brief update on universal full-day kindergarten. We had a larger presentation last month, but I wanted to just come back this month because since the last time we spoke, our enrollment numbers across the district are actually higher than what our MCPC projections were telling us. And in fact, what we're seeing, especially in first grade, is that we're anticipating that we're going to be approximately 100 students over the projected enrollment numbers that we thought we were going to have when I was with you last time. We've had 78 students over that number already. Typically, we get about 35 students in from now until school starts. And so we know our numbers are much larger. That actually translates to 2 to 3 additional classrooms that are going to be necessary due to those enrollment numbers. And so it made us pause and say, what's really going to happen? Are we going to go with the MCPC projections, or should we at least take a look at what we think our enrollment numbers may be? Because we are anticipating they may be higher. And so that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. In addition to that, I also want to talk to you about space, because when we're adding classrooms, we need space for those classrooms. If you recall, the last time we presented, Marion Elementary School was really tight. We talked about that being tight, but we felt like all of the schools were going to be able to house their own full-day kindergarten programs. So we're coming back and saying that may not be the case. Marion Elementary, I think we're going to have to rethink that a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as I progress through these slides. But let's start with our staffing projections and our enrollment projections. So in the current school year, we have 12.5 kindergarten teachers. That includes the K+ teachers that we have in some of our schools. In all of our classrooms, we have 134.5 classroom teachers this school year. That is just classroom teachers, it's not any other teachers. Next year, we're anticipating having 15.5 kindergarten staff if we approve the budget tonight as presented, with those additional 3 K+ teachers. And so that's why that number goes up by 3. In addition to that, we're projecting 139 additional classroom teachers, only classroom, remember, going into the next school year. So we talked about MCPC projections the last time we met, and based on those projections, we anticipated 28 total kindergarten classrooms to implement full-day kindergarten in the district, and we anticipated needing 149 staff members. That's about 10 more than we have right now in the 24-25 school year. With us going back and taking a look at what our numbers really look like, we increased our projections for full-day kindergarten based on what we currently have in our enrollments, grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And with those increases in the projections, we're anticipating that we could top out at 35 kindergarten classrooms across the district for full-day K. So that is definitely an increase over what we talked about the last time. All in, our just classroom teachers, we would anticipate being approximately 159 staff members. So at that low range that we talked about before, we would need 10 additional teachers. Now we've taken some out based on what we're staffing next year, and that's why you see that 10. It's a little different than we talked about last time. At the high range, we're anticipating an additional 20 staff members. That's inclusive of any K-4 teachers. So it's not just K+, it's also looking at the 3 additional first grade teachers that we are adding for the upcoming school year and the bubbles that go up with it. And so just based on our projections out from K-4, we're anticipating at the high range that we could potentially need 20 additional staff members. How that translates to our costs, you'll see the cost estimate at the low range. It's actually a little lower than I presented last month. Again, that's just because of how we've attributed some of our staff members for the upcoming school year. So with that 10+ teachers, it takes us to $6 million around dollars. At the high range, if we were going to add the 20 additional teachers, we'd be at $3,849,409. And again, that's K to 4 additions. It's not just K plus, but you can see the swing is actually a lot more than we had anticipated just because of the projections. I would say we definitely need to go back in the fall and take a look at our projections and have MCPC go back and make some new projections to see how they align with what we have currently coming in this summer. So in addition to that, I mentioned facilities. Honestly, the area that we're concerned about is Marion. Marion's actually going to pick up one more first grade classroom this year than we had anticipated. And remember, we were adding K plus in there. So instead of taking down one wall this summer, we have to take down 2 walls this summer to fit in the K plus program and the additional first grade. And if that bubble moves up, they're going to need more than one classroom. They'll need several classrooms going into the following year. And so we talked a lot about what kind of alternatives might we have to be able to house students at Marion or somewhere else. And so you see there's two suggestions or considerations that we would put in front of you. One of them is to reinstall the modular classrooms that were removed for this current school year. We have actually a 7-year agreement with the township, and so we're able to put them back in without having to go through the process of getting approvals because we have 7 more years on that approval. The cost for that to install the modular classroom is $730,000, and then yearly, our cost for the mobile, the rent of it is $90,000, and so that would be the cost factor from a budget implication. We could also relocate some of our classrooms to other schools and to other buildings, and we could decide what that might look like, but there is an impact on students, staff, and families, no matter which classrooms we decide to move. There'll be transportation costs associated with it. And so they're all TBD, but we do know that there's variables that we need to consider in either one of those 2 solutions that we're putting in front of you right now. So Marion's going to be an issue. We need to continue to watch it and reevaluate and try to figure out where we would house full-day kindergarten for Marion moving forward. Updated estimated implementation costs then, based on what I just spoke about. On the low end, we're at $3.4 million, and on our high end, and the high end's inclusive of those modular classrooms and the rent and the additional staffing, so that's why you see that swing so much, is $5,332,586, and that would be the most extreme case. So next steps, we're going to continue working towards the implementation of full day K. Remember I said this summer we're taking down walls in one of our schools to prepare for it. We're going to talk about the budget considerations. You're going to hear about the budget in just a minute. This is a piece of the budget process, clearly next year and then moving forward as well. In August, we'll come back and we'll provide you an update. And then by the fall, we're going to look to have a new enrollment study done to update what we currently have and take into account the enrollments that we've had so far this year going into the next school year to get a better handle on what enrollment may look like for full day K the following year. Questions?
Thank you, Dr. McLoyne. I'm going to open up to questions. Over this side. Yeah. Ms. Kalish?
Thank you. So I wanted to talk about slide 29. I just want to get a feel for what of this outlay is one-time cost versus ongoing cost versus a higher cost the first year and then a lower ongoing cost the next year, because I'm thinking that's those 3 categories. The facility is mostly one, staffing is going to be an ongoing cost, and then curricular and PD investment is higher the first year and then lower ongoing.
Right. So facilities and playground modifications, everything but $90,000 of that would be a one-time cost. It
Right,
includes
because
the
the 90
installation.
would be the modulars if we went that route.
Yes, right. So that's inclusive of that. We put the $90,000 in there as well, but that's an ongoing cost, that rental fee. Staffing's an ongoing cost that we have every year. And then curriculum, professional development, furniture technology, materials and resources, for the most part, are all one-time costs. It's not to say that there's not some ongoing. We obviously have to always replenish our materials and resources. We do that for every other grade, but primarily that money is that one-time cost.
Okay, and would if if partner schooling for the extra classroom or classrooms at Marion is being considered, are there any other elementary schools that have the space to put a classroom in it at this point without, I mean, I'm thinking, what's coming to my head is Belmont Hills, because I know that those two catchments are adjacent in that part of Narberth with students that go to Belmont Hills and some students that would go to Marion Elementary.
So I think we have some decision points that we have to really think about, and we need to watch the enrollment to make that decision, but it could be that we just offset the kids that don't fit Marion. We can move all of kindergarten there, we can move another grade level there, we can think about programmatic changes, and so I think there's a lot of variables, but there is space. Kenwood has space, Belmont Hill has some space, so in the district there is space available, but we really have to investigate where do we want to put it and what we're going to move, because there's options for sure.
Okay. I mean, I know that's nobody's favorite option, but when we're looking at close to $1 million investment in getting the modulars there, I think it's worth considering.
So to clarify on that same slide around the relocating the classes, so to me, that sounds more than just a partner school where it's some kids, but like a full class. So like I'm making up a number, one of the 5 kindergarten classes or one of the 5 third grades would go to a different school. And then, so that classroom would be there, but then they would also be integrated into that other school's specials and things like that, right? So it would be, okay.
Yeah, yes. We wouldn't necessarily think of it as partner school. We would move a whole classroom, or multiple classrooms might move, but, and it may not be where the partner school is. It really depends on our space and what we feel like is the best case scenario for us to be able to accomplish what we're trying to.
Right, okay. And with the partner schools, it's sort of a joint agreement, and where the families, if a family is partner school to a different elementary school, they can choose, if I remember correctly, to stay at that partner school. Correct?
I believe that's true, right? Is that
Right,
true?
and it does not sound
Yes.
like that's really what this is talking about.
I think our goal would be to move students back. That's what we've said all along. We would want our students to go back to their home school for the rest of their education. So it isn't that we're thinking at this point, mind you, that this is just, we really have to think through all of this. So, but we weren't initially thinking that once we moved a classroom, that classroom would stay with the other school for their whole career. We were thinking it would happen in kindergarten and then they would go back to their home school.
And then in future years, it would be I understand that you're still thinking through all of this, but it would be, every year there would be a kindergarten class maybe that was over there, as opposed to this year it's kindergarten and next year it's first grade and then the following year it's second grade. It would just, every year there's a kindergarten class that goes to a different school.
Yes, and it may be more than one. Honestly, we may need to move more than one classroom out of the building. But yes, it would only be kindergarten that we would be thinking about unless we decided to go with a different grade level. I think we have to look at all of our options and then come back and present to the board what we feel like would be the best scenario.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lee?
Thank you. On slide 29, you have estimated implementation costs. I guess this is a similar question that I asked the last time. This really isn't an all-in cost because you're not factoring in transportation cost increases or support staff needs or anything like that, right?
So it is an all-in cost, but I want to put a caveat on there in that when we looked at our estimate for high on the staffing, we only estimated classroom teachers. If we add another 10 sections, then we're probably going to need to add some additional staffing beyond the classroom teachers. But it is inclusive of transportation, materials, resources, furniture. Those pieces are there. It could swing a little higher though, just because we haven't estimated out the other pieces of staffing and anything associated with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ms. Garrison?
My question was really on the same lines as Peter's question. Like, did we have an estimate of the total cost of everything, like, that we would potentially need? And so basically, variation on the same thing.
Right, right. And if you remember last month, we estimated every cost that we could potentially have. This, though, only estimates classroom staffing, so I would say that it's going to go up a little bit because we haven't thought about the other staffing potentials that could be a possibility or anything else that is associated with that. So the high end could go up a little bit just because we haven't done those figures. The low end is pretty solid because that is what we estimated last month. I mean, I'm not going to say something couldn't come out of the woodwork, but we looked through everything, including transportation, when we were doing it. Food services, we had conversations about. So I feel confident on that low end. The high end, I think, could go up a little bit higher.
Would more than one school need modular classrooms?
Marion really looks like it's the place that is our pinch point in the district. I think we'll be okay everywhere else, just based on our estimates, you know, but I can't predict 5 years down the road what our enrollments are going to look like. The other really tight school for us is Penn Win, if you recall, when we went through the presentation. So there's a potential that something could happen with Penn Win as well. There's always that potential because I don't think we know that far in advance.
Do we know in other districts that went from half-day to full-day kindergarten, did they suddenly get an uptick of people moving to that district because now they have full-day kindergarten?
So, I mean, when we talked to the MCPC, they used other districts to predict out what it was going to look like, not just, if you remember, not just in kindergarten, but beyond kindergarten. And they used the other districts as their gauge to make that assumption. So that was what they predicted. I really strongly think we have to go back, though, and take a look at their projections going into next year as well.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sotner has a question.
Sure, and this might have been answered and I just missed it, so I apologize. But why, from the last presentation to this presentation, what was the new information that we've received that made us see a different jump of needs and how many kids we're going to be in, how many needs we have? And then I guess the next question is, are we missing anything else then?
I would never say we're not missing anything else because I think that it's always possible that we are. So I put up this slide, and I don't think you can see it, but I put up the slide that was our first slide on full-day kindergarten planning update. So what has made us reevaluate and rethink is really based on what our projections were and what we used for staffing this year, and then what our actuals are to date. We have a large swing between what was projected and what actually is coming to fruition. If you look at the budget when we talk about the presentation coming up, you're going to see in staffing that we're actually adding and reallocating some staff to first grade because we need additional first grade teachers that we did not anticipate based on the enrollment projections that we had. And so we are now reevaluating, is kindergarten going to look differently because we're about 100 students above the projection in first grade. And so that's why we regrouped and said we need to look at this again and at least let the board know what the possibilities could be.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. McCoy.
Back again for the penultimate presentation for this evening, I believe. So what we did want to do is bring back just a refresher of some of our school safety approaches here. And I did couple it with student wellness because I do believe, and I think a lot of us believe, that there is a relationship. If students feel safe, they're going to feel better about their school experience. If families feel like their children are safe here, they're going to feel better about it. And hopefully that adds to our collective community wellness. But they are separate, and I'll address them separately as well. As we've shared in the past, and just to put a face to the district and people here in the room that are on this team, and I think largely, our staff is committed to ensuring across the board a safe, healthy, and supportive learning environment. That's why we're here, first and foremost. We want to make sure that students come and experience learning opportunities and an environment that they feel safe in. And, but that's not necessarily an easy thing to just say we're safe. It is a comprehensive, complicated, and interactive process. So when we talk about safety, it is an ongoing conversation. When something happens, we talk about a crisis. A crisis could be one student gets injured on a playground, to something much larger scale that we're all hands in on to ensure that we're addressing appropriately and also reflecting on. So there's continuous reflection on what happened, why did it happen, what could we have done to prevent it, and are there any things that we can do to make us better observers of conditions that may contribute to unsafe experiences or places. So again, the breadth is not just about that physical safety, it's about mental safety, it's about cyber safety, and all of these pieces are not within the range of this presentation. You're welcome, because we would be here a long time, but I wanted to note that because I just want to give a slice of how we approach it, and this is ongoing, conversations that we have, but also certainly information that we will continue to present to the board and public. So as I've shared before, the way in which we kind of organize our thinking around how do we address safety is sometimes around that crisis management model, which is not something we invented. It's something that reflects other organizations at a federal, state, local level, and how we think about our readiness and our response efforts. So we categorize these. You can see what it looks like. There's preparedness, there's hard protection measures, there's mitigation, prevention, and then response and recovery. I'm going to go over this pretty quickly. This information is available. It's been presented before, but I also think that there's comfort in knowing that these are protocols and practices that we've had in place, that we've practiced, that we're familiar with, that we feel confident in because there are routines that have delivered results for us. So I bring, the example I would point out is the PREPARE model. One of the advantages of having a model like this in place in our organization, which has been in place for a long period of time, is that it allows us to respond in a crisis moment with understandings of how roles and responsibilities will be mitigated, or not mitigated, delegated. I'm losing my vocabulary. Delegated in a moment of crisis. So there's some reassurance in that we know that there's a protocol that we're going to follow, and that depending on the circumstance, it doesn't always have to be the boss that is the one that is the general in every crisis situation. I use the example of what happens on a playground. That may be the school nurse that becomes the lead role in that crisis management situation because they have the information about that student. They know what materials are necessary to mitigate that potential crisis, and that they're best positioned to do all those things. And then there's supportive roles around that individual. So again, that's an easy way to share out that experience, but that also that PREPARE model allows us to react to much more complex situations as well. So again, it's something that's been we've used it, we've practiced it, and it has helped us manage some really serious crisis situations just with that readiness piece, which is huge. If you can imagine in a crisis situation, if we don't know who's going to be calling the shots, it can be very complicated, overly complicated, and we're not getting the support that's necessary in that moment. Other examples of when we move through the different phases, protection, the various ways in which we think about protecting our building and our environment from security cameras. And earlier we were talking about how maybe 20 years ago we had 10 video cameras that recorded on a cassette to over 1,000 that we have in place right now that require ongoing management, maintenance, and monitoring. And so when we think about not only the complexity of security, but also the cost and human resources necessary to support those security efforts, I think it's worth sharing that's all part of the mitigation measures that we consider and the relative risks and return on those investments that we go through. the Raptor visitor management, the security guards, the way in which we've restructured the entrances to our schools. So these are all measures that we've taken over time and in response to what we've learned and the recommendations that have been made to us as an organization. I think one of the key pieces of the puzzle is that prevention mitigation approach. And there are some items that we call, or examples that are called out here. Because in reality, as much of the protective measures that you put in place, we could build a fortress and someone's going to figure out a way to get in. And so when we build a community where everyone feels like they have ownership and they belong and they have investment, their students, staff, everyone is going to feel compelled or better positioned or more supported in coming forward with concerns or identifying behaviors that seem out of place. So really, I think that's the key to all of these security measures working, is that you have an investment of your community and to making sure that we're following through on things that are of concern. And some of the recent cases that we've experienced this spring are reflective of students, of families, and of staff coming forward so that we could intervene immediately and address the situation through some of those other approaches, such as CSTAG, which is our threat assessment protocol. We've referred to this often in our communications to families as an evidence-based approach to handling situations that may be designated as a threat, and it allows us a way to work through a protocol, a team-based a protocol to assess the level of that threat and react accordingly. Again, response measures are tied to some of those protocols that I've talked about already. We have a well-established relationship with LMPD. We want to continue to build on that relationship in terms of being available to us to respond to crises, but also have familiarity with our buildings. So we work with LMPD to allow them opportunities to be in our buildings, to understand the layout, to have access should the need arise for them to react or be available in an emergency situation. And then finally, which I'm not sure why that went that direction, recovery is important. I talked about that cycle of when something happens, big or small, how are the ways in which we reflect on that situation to build better responses in the future. So the PREPARE model has a very nice protocol that we use to do that evaluative work at the end of a crisis situation. I would also argue we're kind of still in a recovery from our pandemic crisis. So there are things that, crisis can be big, crisis can be long, and there are those established protocols that help us measure our recovery efforts against an established and evidence-based protocol for response. Just some other updates or some information items that I think might be helpful for everyone to know. We have a longstanding health and safety committee that has been in place for a long period of time to look at, in particular, injuries that occur on the work site or in the workplace. So that's a long established committee, but I wanted to tie it to safety and security because, again, that's another committee in which that informs our work in terms of how do we prevent incidents from occurring. We have our pandemic-related health and safety team, so I made sure to note that because it sounds similar to our health and safety committee, but that has been in place as we've moved through the COVID response and we continue to meet, not quite as regularly, but to inform our response now from a recovery lens and how that work, and especially that team that worked through the crisis can help, are really well positioned to help us understand how to move through it and out of it. We have safety and crisis response teams both at the district level and the school levels that are trained in accordance with that prepare model, but also are familiar with our EOP plans, et cetera. We are moving towards the formal establishment of medical emergency response teams throughout the district to help support our emergency response practices and protocols, especially as they relate to AEDs, CPR, et cetera. It doesn't mean everyone on that team has to do those things, but to be able to support situations when there's a health crisis that a nurse or other individual may be responding to. And then finally, I connect it back to that wellness committee, and I'll talk a little bit about that work. But again, I think that dovetails into how do we create a safe environment, and one of the ways we do that is to ensure that we're projecting that we are committed to this work, but also that people see that, you know, it's a continual ongoing work in trying our best to address safety concerns as they come up. So some examples of our current work includes updating our EOP, our emergency operation plan, and the building EOPs. We'll continue to reinforce that importance of building culture in our schools, reinforce the message that reporting concerning behavior is critical. Again, these are the things that I've already spoke to, but another piece I wanted to mention is the reality of schools becoming more of a 24/7 response team. And that's partly due to the way in which reporting is, that platform for reporting, Safe to Say, works. It's partly due because that's the environment we created for our families and for our students to feel like there are trusted adults that they can come to or email even on the weekends. And we do have individuals that pick up those emails and respond immediately. I can attest to that. So we find that more and more families and students are coming to us as the first line of response to what situations may have historically gone to the police or to some other agency. So and that's why having a partnership or relationship with the police is critical. Again, we're going to continue over the summer and into next year to reinforce and clarify those behavior expectations. We've seen changes in how the impact of social media, of devices are having on our kids, and making sure that we're being really clear about what may have changed in terms of what you can and can't say and how people react to that. So we want to provide that clarity to our students. And then the ongoing training that we do for safety and security protocols for all staff. So this is just a sampling, but again, it's to go back to that point of this is complex, ongoing, and work that we're committed to, and we have to find places and space in our overall training agenda to make sure that we're doing all these things at the highest level for the benefit of our students, staff, and community. And just to turn briefly to wellness, because it's one thing that I've certainly, when I've had the opportunity to talk about that being an important piece of our work, we did update through our Wellness Committee work the Lower Merion Policy and Administrative Regulation on student wellness this year. We have a dedicated subcommittee to work on student devices in schools and provide recommendations back to the policy committee around how we might be able to think differently about that in service of some of the recommendations and science that is now out there in front of us about the challenges and concerns related to especially adolescents' use of social media and devices. So our next year focus areas are connected to some of the information we shared out tonight, and we'll continue to revise that administrative regulation and work towards implementation. And another highlight that I'd like to share, just because I think when I think of safety, when I think of wellness, it really has to be a community effort. And we want, I want to reinforce as a district, as an individual working long-term in this district, I think that we continue to search for ways to partner with our community and ensuring that we're doing these things at a high level in service of safety and wellness for our students and staff and families. So the recent Family Summer Resource Night was a step in that direction, and we're intending over the summer to reconvene and calendar some events over the next school year so that we're more aligned and have a common language across our community to address some of these issues. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. I'm going to open it to questions. I wanted to start with the Family Summer Resource Night. I understand that it was recorded and will be available. It is posted on, excellent. So it's on the Lower Merion School District website. Do you know if it'll be posted on the township website as well? That would be great, as many different places people can find it. It's a great community opportunity, I think.
Agreed. And our intent was to reconvene, reflect, and share out. Like I said, we'd like to continue that partnership, so that would be something we can definitely talk to them about.
Great, thank you. Are there other questions from the board? Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Ms. Schaefer. I appreciate the thorough presentations on all three topics. And next on our agenda, I believe, is Mr. Orlando with the final budget presentation.
Here she goes again.
Sorry. Wish there was an outfit change or something I could do. So I'm going to lead off and then hand it over into the capable hands of Mr. Orlando. As far as the budget overview, it really, I think this is our educational financing plan. So this is the way in which a lot of the things that I've talked about tonight get supported. The budget, ideally is serving students in a variety of ways that far exceed what we're going to cover this evening. But it's a really critical decision that the board makes annually about how we move forward and support the work as comprehensively as possible. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the ongoing conversations that we've had throughout the Finance Committee meetings that took place this spring. I thought it was important in the context of this prepared budget that we highlight the new proposed property tax rebate programs that benefit our seniors as well as our volunteer firefighters. And what's highlighted there, these are presentations that have been shared or snippets of presentations that have been shared with the public previously, but to highlight that those additional rebates are embedded in this budget as proposed this evening. Another piece of the conversations that we've been having is around the staffing allocations that were recommended for this particular budget. One of the questions that had been raised around this is the enrollment projections being relatively flat. Putting aside the first grade numbers that we've been talking about this evening, what then caused us to need this additional amount of staffing. And over the course of a few presentations, we did share about, and these are why the columns are the way they are, to reflect that some of the additional staffing reflects how that change in the K-8 programming works, and that drives staffing changes that are a little bit different than have historically been in place. So that teaming model drives some additional staffing because of the way that works, which is new to us, and we're living into that. So because of the increase at the 5th grade and 6th grade at two different middle schools, that necessitated additional staffing there. Similarly with our world language, which again, we're living into the first year of that reimagination of the schedule, we've shifted all of world language, or I'm sorry, no, I wouldn't say shift. We've increased the amount of world language that students in grades 5 through 8 have access to, and the way in which that has been realized in this schedule has created additional need for world language across the middle schools. The math specialists, I highlighted that in gold because there is a potential that we have a need that at the elementary level that we're going to need to address because of the enrollment growth. That may be a change in how we think about math specialists at the middle level. So that's why we're still keeping a close eye on those numbers across first grade. So that's why that shift was noted there, because we didn't add any additional, there's no additional staffing reflected here as what was presented earlier, so I wanted to note that, because you can see in that fourth column where instead of the additional earmarked coordinator support for that 2.0 FTEs, the other gold box there, that has been designated as elementary teachers for those first grade class size increases that we've discussed in connection with the full day K update. The other additions for this year around in that compliance student supports column, which is that second column, we have increasing needs that are driving the number of special education teachers, gifted support, and ELD. I've looked around at similar districts where they're also experiencing growth in those areas, even with a relatively stagnant overall enrollment growth. I think that's a continued question for all of us as leaders, as educators. What's that factor? Is that COVID? Is that something else? And something we'll continue to investigate. The full day K program this year is being increased, as we've talked about earlier, to add K plus in our 3 remaining schools that do not have that, and those staffing that's under that particular category, including a high school social studies teacher, are all earmarked to be part of that full day K staffing number in 24-25. So those are already accounted for in that projection moving forward. And I'm going to talk before I get to that other caveat. We're maintaining the programmatic enrollment adjustments to support our diversity, equity, inclusivity, and belonging work as we continue to move forward with that being implemented and more importantly embedded in our work, and having a coordinator to support Shawana James Coles and her work is critical, because 11 schools is a lot to cover, and we see that a need to provide additional support, and we believe that coordinator will also be tasked with supporting our social emotional learning work as well. The other noted additions we've talked about relative to the support side. And to wrap up this particular side is as a result of the conversations we've had, the presentations we've given around the staffing, is an understanding and a commitment on the part of the board to realize full day kindergarten necessitates us taking a look at our staffing more comprehensively. So that asterisk at the bottom reflects our commitment in the 23-24 school year to look across our programs, look across the way in which we staff our guidelines, so that we can ultimately realize additional staffing in the range of 8 to 10 staffing positions, and those aren't specifically designated right now because we want to take a look at that and how that would impact potentially programming, bring those recommendations back to the board prior to actually making those adjustments, and in order to realize or better realize the need associated with implementing full day kindergarten. So that is the commitment as a condition of the approval of this particular staffing recommendation to move forward and look again at those staffing levels across the board in service of full day kindergarten at a later time. The other topic that we discussed quite a bit through the finance process was the facilities and operations planning, and our commitment to ensuring that our capital items, the maintenance, the replacement, is squarely in front of us, because those are typically bigger, larger ticket items, and we want to make sure that within all of these variables that are moving forward, including full-day kindergarten, including potentially other changes, and in light of some constraints on our budgeting, that we're ensuring that we are not foregoing the addressing the capital items that are listed there. So we will continue to present probably through our facilities meetings, updates on how we're scoping that from the standpoint of the lifespan of these particular items, when they're earmarked for upgrade or replacement. And so we're going to take a deeper dive over the next months and years to ensure that we're keeping an eye on those particular items as we're looking to expand our programmatic options. And I think, is this the trade-off slide? No, this is a reflection, at least for next year, in terms of those capital items, the earmarked amount in the current budget that will go to replacement buses, as well as partial roof replacement at Penwyn Elementary.
Okay, I got the handoff for the second part of the presentation. So I'm just going to highlight some of the budget, important budget highlights that we talked about before. The board did pass a resolution to certify the millage rate will not exceed the 4.1% at-one index. There is a use of fund balance of $4 million as part of the tax credit that will be on these 23-24 tax bills. As a lot of districts are, we still continue to have challenges due to a number of factors contributing to our growing expenditures, and we continue to plan for both near and long-term goals. We had our budget calendar this year. You can see we had about, I think, five or six finance committee meetings, and now we're here at June 20th in front of the school board for final budget approval and adoption tonight. So I want to talk about where does the money come from. And you've seen this chart in the past. Over 83% comes to local taxpayers, about 15% from the state, a little less than 1% from the federal government, and that 1.25 is the $4 million for the tax credit. And you can just see here that kind of breakout, $4 million for the tax credit, which is the 1.25. The 83% is the $362,668 of local sources. The roughly 15% from the state is $47,842,505, and a little over $2.4 million from the federal sources. That equals the $320,361,173. Turn our side to the expenditure side. The state breaks the expenditures or reports them in two ways. One is by function, one is by object. So this is by the function, and you can see 57% of the budget goes towards instruction. We have 30% goes to support services, 11% is for other expenditures and financing, and 2% goes for non-instructional services. You can see on the left-hand side the breakout of all those different items. And then it also reports it by object, and you can see 76% of the budget is for salaries and benefits. You can see it's a very labor-intensive industry that we're in. And then just breaking out those objects by dollar figures, you can see on the right-hand side is the final budget for this year. It calls for an increase of 1.1903 mils, or a 3.82%. So the new millage rate proposed is 32.3948%. For a household of around a $250,000 assessed value, you will see an increase of about $298. That does not include the tax credit, which would be reduce that further. There is the $4 million, plus there is an additional $1 million resulting from the uncashed and voidage checks that was sent to class members for the settlement that has been added into it. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Mr. Orlando, questions, Mr. Lee?
I have, I guess, a question and a clarification. Can we go to slide 4? So first, I wanted to thank the administration. I know I've been pushing everyone pretty hard on during the finance meetings, and a couple of the extra finance meetings have occurred due to my questions. Just to clarify for everyone, for that asterisk note, the 8 to 10 positions that we're saying we're going to reclassify, what that means is when we go to staff up for full day K, that we're going to, for lack of a better term, cannibalize existing seats to fill 8 to 10 of those full day kindergarten positions rather than adding new. We're going to repurpose.
I was trying to think of a word that,
Yes.
that's the goal here. I do think in terms of what we want to make sure is that when we do repurpose, that we're clear about what that trade-off looks like. So I think as we move forward, the idea would be, that was the charge of the board to do that, and but we want to do so in a way that obviously minimizes impact on our programs and on our students. So that would be the way we would go about doing that. And if there is, that whatever that impact is, we want to make sure that that's something that the board is aware of, and we would share that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a good compromise solution. I know that given the timeline and just the timing of when the proposals were made, changing the existing proposal would have been potentially damaging to getting the budget approved. So having that repurposing happen the following year, I think is a good compromise. Thank you. Could you go back one more slide?
Here?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. So I just wanted to sort of contextualize this for everyone. So these are 2 new tax rebate programs. That 50% that we're showing here is 50% of the rebate that the seniors are getting from the state program.
That's correct.
Okay. And just for context, that's at twice the level any other school district implemented it their first year of doing this rebate. Is that right?
Can't say every school district. Most of the school districts that have it started at a lower percentage. I
started at
can't say
25%,
everyone has
right.
started 50% or lower, but
Okay.
a number of them have.
But the ones that we looked at that have implemented this as well, because not everyone has done this.
No, that's correct.
There's very few school districts have done this.
There's a fair amount that
Yeah.
have it.
Okay.
Some have a lot lower percentage than we do,
Yeah.
and some are a little bit higher.
Okay.
And some have over time increased it. And so my
Correct.
clarification is that these individuals will get the rebate from the state, and they will be getting
Correct.
that
Those
rebate
individuals
from us
that,
as well.
correct. Those individuals that have been submitted the PA 1000 and have been approved by the state, they'll be the individuals that would be qualify under our program, which is same as all of those school districts do.
Okay. And the firefighter rebate, which is new for us, is also relatively new for school districts in general, right?
Correct.
That
Yes.
one, there are very few school districts doing it. And to our knowledge, this is almost twice as much as other school districts?
The ones that we've seen, I think the highest one that we've seen so far has been $800.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Do we have other questions? No. I'm waiting for Dr. Sotner to provide, she has a question she wants to ask. We have a question around, for the senior rebate. How will individuals know, to find out about that we are now providing that senior rebate? And will we be adding it to the website? When will that happen? Like, what's that process there?
I'm turning to Amy Buckman. I believe, yes, we would, like other districts, we would post on our website what the instructions are, what you need to do. There would be a form that would have to be completed, that they can fill out, what documentation needs to be sent in either via US mail or via email. We'll probably set up our own like email, that they can send the information to.
Yeah, I certainly anticipate we would share that information on our website, as well as, depending on timing, our community newsletter that is sent by snail mail to all residents. And I would work collaboratively with the township as well, so that our commissioners and other township communication vehicles can publicize that information as well.
And I'm sure they'll be happy to. I know I've spoken with Commissioner O'Neill from Villadova about this program. She's very supportive of it, so I'm sure that she and others will happily help spread the word for us. All right, well, thank you very much for that presentation. We will move on with our agenda now. Next on our agenda are committee meeting reports. We will be as brief as possible. Okay. In fact, we're going to push forward the June 14th Equity and Anti-Racism Committee meeting report until next month, and Mr. Lee will do our monthly facilities and purchasing meeting report.
All right. So this is a report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting that happened on June 15th. The following items were discussed by the committee and recommended for approval tonight by the full board. We recommended the list of district bills for approval. We reviewed and recommended the following items from the purchasing report for approval. $10,100 for library carpet tile installation at Welsh Valley Middle School from MAC Flooring. $23,325 for kitchen hood and fire extinguisher maintenance services across the district from Kistler O'Brien. $9,750 for generator maintenance services across the district from JSR Generator Services. $18,363 for smoke pipe repairs at Kinwood Elementary School from FW Webb Company. $18,335.97 for renewal of maintenance work order management software from Brightly Software, formerly known as Dude Solutions. We recommended the following district contract renewals for approval. Pediatric therapeutic services for contracted physical therapists at $79.99 per hour. 2 renewals with MCIU, $1,011,899.82 for shared student support services, and $27,613.60 for license renewal of frontline professional growth software for tracking staff professional learning. A renewal with the Lincoln Center for 5 full-time master's level school counselors for $425,000. Leader Services for license renewal of IEP Writer and Children Count software for $39,016. Nearpod for subscription renewal of Nearpod presentation software at secondary schools for $31,878. 2 renewals with Savas, $83,462.50 for K2 math curriculum investigations. $7,125.74 for Envisions math curriculum. Learning Without Tears for license renewal of K-5 typing instruction software, keyboarding without tears for $9,177. Heinz Rowing for boathouse lease for Lower Merion crew team, $43,850. Renewals with 12 bus transportation companies for supplemental out-of-district bus services to support special needs sports and activities at per-run rates. The contracted companies are Atlas Transportation, Balgo Company, Klein Transportation, Craft Coaches, Medical Transport System, Metz, Perkiomen Transportation, Seg Bus, Sarah Car Care, Superior Bus, and Werner Coach. Bus Boss for a final year renewal of bus routing software for $7,704.50. The overlap year of our old bus routing software is necessary to complete state reporting for the 22-23 school year student transportation metrics. ESS Northeast for daily substitute teacher support. Daily substitute teacher rates will range from $57.83 for a half-day instructional aid to $250.58 for a full-day building-based substitute teacher. Optiv for a retainer for their CrowdStrike incident response service in the event of a cyber attack or a data breach for $70,500. Services can be redirected to penetration testing or training if no cyber attack occurs. Mainline School Night for use of 35 rooms at Lower Merion High School for 8 nights in the fall. Mainline School Night will pay $8,400 in license fees to the district. Glack & Thomas Panzak for ongoing landscape design and evaluation services at Black Rock Middle School for a not-to-exceed amount of $17,500. We recommended the following change orders for Black Rock Middle School for approval. 3 change orders for IMC construction, $31,177.04 for the addition of rebar chairs to the concrete area of the courtyard. A credit of $1,000 for an unbuilt concrete walkway along North Stone Ridge Lane that the district installed. $7,928.29 for rework of the ceiling following the install of the theater projection screen. And 1 credit from Borough Electrical for $46,785 for unused supervision allowance during the construction. We received an update on the construction of Black Rock. Building finalization projects scheduled for this summer include installation of permanent acid-resistant sinks in the science room, installation of the final running track coating, calibration of the lighting control systems, and landscaping punch list work. There's expected a net credit of $66,040 in forecasted future change orders. There are $1,982,389 in claims made by contractors and $457,076 in claims made by Lower Merion School District, both of which will be resolved through dispute resolution process. Including all disputed claims, the total project cost is $106,064,124, which is higher than the $101,563,038 projected cost at the time of the contract award, but less than the $114,062,616 original construction estimate. To date, there have been $5,154,991 in total change orders on the project, the bulk of which have come from 4 causes. 42% resulting from additional work related to soil excavation and site preparation, 18% resulting from omissions or errors made by the architectural firm in the building design, 21% resulting from omissions or errors made by professionals and sub-consultants related to the building design, and 9% from school district requests. The next Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting will be on Thursday, July 13th, 2023, where you guys can join in on all the fun.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and I'll note that the Facilities and Purchasing Committee is the only committee meeting that meets over the summertime. Otherwise, we have our July and August full board meetings.
No vacation for us.
No vacation for you. Next, we have time for the audience recognition. At this time, we will hear public comment. If you would like to speak at tonight's meeting and have not yet signed up with Ms. LaPera, please do so now. For those of you joining us via the webinar, the chat feature will now be open and you'll see a 10-minute timer appear on your screen. You can submit your comments and or questions via the chat feature. Please be sure, both on the chat and in person, to begin with your full name and where you reside within the district in order for your comment to be shared. And just a reminder, it just needs to be your neighborhood. It does not need to be any specific. And as always, I would like to offer that if we have any students that have signed up to speak, that the students have the opportunity to speak first. Ms. LaPera, there's at least one student that's still signing up.
I'll tell the students to come up first. If we can have the students please come up first, I would appreciate that. You can say your name and where you, or just that you're a student, and we'll start with them. And then we have Jan, then we have Jeff Brody, Ruth Jenkin, and Sarah Thomas after the students.
Dear board members, my name is Claudia Crable. My address is 218 Williamsburg Road in Ardmore. I am a current student at Wash Valley Middle School, and I will be entering 8th grade this fall. I am speaking to you in order to discuss the danger of having single-use plastics in our lunchrooms. While using single-use plastics and containers can be cheap and effective, I believe that these plastics have detrimental effects on our environment and have much better alternatives. For starters, plastics and styrofoam is not an easily biodegradable product, therefore causing lots of built-up landfill waste. To give you specifics, in California alone, the schools and universities produce a yearly average of 562,442 tons of waste. Can you imagine how much plastic waste all the schools in America produce? An average American citizen uses 156 plastic bottles per year. According to Repurpose Global, even when you recycle plastic, 91% of it does not get recycled or disposed properly. Instead, it is burned, causing air pollution. It is so common to use plastics in cafeterias across the world, and because of that, we produce so much waste. Schools in Lower Merion are only adding to this problem. Further, this puts our future generation of students at risk. Science.org states that with the rapid growth of plastic usage, it is estimated that we will have 26 billion metric tons of plastic by 2050. This is something that will have a massive impact for the students and children of our future. Climate change will only get worse and hotter, landfills will take up so much of our world, and only so many forests and natural resources will be left. Plastic containers and utensils also have lots of chemicals that can be harmful for our growing body. These chemicals can be found within plastic coating on containers that can mess with the child's hormones, be cancerous, or even deadly. Is that really something that we want to be giving to our future students? Is that really fair? Although plastics can be easy and convenient for the lunchroom, it is extremely important to consider the consequences and issues with this. Bamboo or reusable products are reasonable and affordable alternatives to single-use plastics. Our landfills are taking up space where a forest could have been. We are destroying our only earth and making it a less desirable place for next generations. Using these plastics as containers are not just unsafe for our environment, but for our children as well. Solving this problem starts with our school district. Please take this into consideration and help while we still can. Sincerely, Claudia Crable. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other students? Okay, we'll start with John, and then Jeff. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Student?
Are we allowed to be others?
Yes, please, thank you.
That's okay. Hi, my name's Sam Donaki. I'm a rising junior at Lower Merion High School, and I live in Wynwood. I want to start by congratulating Dr. Yanni on his appointment as superintendent. It's been an honor to work with Dr. Mameen and Ms. Schaefer over the last year, and I so look forward to continuing to work with our administrators, new and old. I also briefly wanted to shout out the school safety presentation from earlier to say that while I see your attempts at prevention and mitigation, and I genuinely applaud them, they are an incredible effort that you're taking to keep your students safe. But while restorative practices are listed as a district strategy, I do fail to see them sufficiently implemented in Lower Merion schools, and our school community doesn't heal from these incidents. We whisper about them until our memories die down. I'll believe you when you say that our safety is a priority, when our understandings of words like safety and wellness are defined in the same language. Lime green lanyards and locked doors aren't making a tangible impact on my safety, and I hesitate to see a lot of the district's crisis mitigation efforts as more than security theater, attempts to make it look like we're safe out of thin air. I hear your concern about the impact of social media on students, and I can't take you seriously. Give me access to green space, give me climate disaster preparedness, give me forgiving attendance policies, give me Narcan training for seniors and usable suicide intervention trainings, give me listening to students about what they need to keep each other and themselves safe, and then we can talk. Aside from that, to introduce myself, I spent my sophomore year showing up to way too many school board meetings to advocate for a few things. Firstly, preserving Oakwell Forest, using that land as an environmental education center, integrating nature into our curriculums, teaching about history and climate change and science out in the field in this incredible resource that our district owns, preserving countless historical and environmental resources that once lost can never be replaced. As fences go up around the property and updates die down about plans with Polo Fields and other partners, I need you to know that as the school year winds down, the amount that we care won't. Second, more paths for student voice. As much as I've enjoyed getting to speak in front of the school board every month, I need you to know that
it shouldn't take coming out here till 11 to have student voices be heard. There are so many simple steps I'd love to see this board take. Include high school students in district-wide emails, so I'm not finding out about our new superintendent or our latest crisis through which parent is checking their email this week, but direct communication. Schedule a town hall type meeting at LM and Harriton in the fall. Commit to reimagining curriculums with student input, and start working on greater, more systemic ways to incorporate student voice. I've had the privilege of watching a lot of my friends graduate this May, and the long stretches of half-zoned-out name-calling. I found myself thinking, I don't want to walk across that stage in 2 years without knowing the work I've done has meant something. I got a call earlier today from a mother of a very passionate 4th grader who was disappointed that she couldn't make it out here tonight, and it made me think about how many LM students really care, how many students I represent and other students represent when we come to speak here. And all of them are some of the most inspiring, intelligent people you could ever have the pleasure of meeting, and all of them are so excited to work with you and to establish a real advisory committee with our school board. Thank you so much. Have a great summer.
Thank you, Sam.
Hi. Greetings, Lower Merion School Board. My name is Athen Shopper, and I am a rising senior at Lower Merion High School. I live in Marion Station, and I'm an officer in the Lower Merion Environmental Club. Even though the summer months are upon us, and us students have begun to unwind from a rigorous year of classes, our engagement and dedication to saving Oakwell will not wane. You can anticipate continued student efforts to advocate for the preservation of this historically and ecologically significant property. Meanwhile, we are still waiting for more communication from the school board and Lower Merion administration about Oakwell, as promised. Many community members are concerned that you seek to use the relative inattention of the community during the summer to take action in regard to Oakwell without informing or consulting with us. We hope that this is not the case and implore you to communicate with us about what your current plans are for the property, so as to foster trust and cooperation between the student movement and school board. Speaking of the board, tonight we heard you talk about the Lmsd budget and how you hope to maximize the impact of our tax dollars to ensure that every LM student has access to a quality education. If you guys turn Oakwell into fields, the money you invest will only benefit a small subset of students at the school district, the Blackrock sports teams using the fields. Moreover, if you use our tax dollars in this manner, you'll be unable to recoup the investment. If you do this to Oakwell, it'll become a $12 million money pit. By contrast, if you choose to preserve Oakwell and use it as an educational facility in accordance with the Acorns proposal, you will save the money required to level this forest. Furthermore, the property could be used by students of every grade level and school as an innovative part of the academic curriculum. In addition, the property could even be used by the district to fundraise. Instead of being a money pit, this property could become a profitable venue. Returning to the subject of the school board, I also recall that tonight you guys are going to be voting to appoint Dr. Yanni as our new superintendent. Dr. Yanni, we welcome you to the LM district and look forward to meeting with you to pick up where we left off with Dr. Mumin and Ms. Schaefer. I believe that if we work together, we can come up with a solution that protects both our environment and the historic property on Oakwell while ensuring that our student athletes at Blackrock can participate in sports unimpeded. This debate is not a winner-take-all contest. Through cooperation and collaboration, we can come up with an outcome that benefits all stakeholders in the district. In the meantime, Noah Forer has made a documentary about Oakwell and the student movement to save it, and we would love you all to see this incredible film. There will be a free public screening on Thursday, June 29th, 12 p.m. at the Bryn Mawr Film Institute, and after the movie, there will be a student-led Q&A session about the film and Oakwell. We would love to see all of you there, and we hope that this film can foster informed, constructive dialogue about the potential of this property. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I wish you all a wonderful summer.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it for the students? Yes. Okay, thank you. Jan, then Jeff Brody, Ruth Jenkins, Sarah Thomas.
Hi, good evening. I'm here. My name is Jan Turvish. I'm from Wynwood, Lower Merion alumni. And I want to thank the students for talking about Oakwell coming out late, and it's in the summer, so bonus there. I also wanted to mention a great point here about plastic wastes. I remember talking to one of my beloved teachers, Dr. McKenna at Harrison. He would talk about the old days. He's a veteran. He's been there a long time. And he said back then they had wonderful ceramic plates that they ate off and some metal cutlery. I always thought that was quite a classy way to eat. But back to the main kind of topic at hand, which is Oakwell. The big change that has happened at Oakwell was the fact that it is now kind of closed to the public, right? It is, there's kind of ominous fences, a lot of no trespassing signs. I get it. There's some risks there. There's a swimming pool. There's things that have to be secured off. I understand, but what that really means when you see that kind of ominous, intimidating kind of fence is really a loss of learning that has occurred. If we were to kind of, for our new superintendent, Dr. Yanni, I just want to paint kind of the last really year and a half, 2 years, more than 2,000 people have visited. I think more civil societies groups have been there than maybe anywhere else in the district at this point. The Audubon Society was there. Philadelphia Mycelium Club was there. Villanova University was holding bio blitzes with their students there. Lower Merion students take the entire community on tours. If anybody, I believe you're from Upper Dublin, is that right? Upper Dublin, I'm a local kind of architect, working the kind of architectural practice. Upper Dublin has perhaps, administrative building that rivals our own. It's a beautiful kind of farmhouse, complex that was kind of renovated, repurposed. It's kind of fitting to the heritage. I really think that same kind of creativity, where we don't destroy our history, we embrace our history. We don't kind of shoot in our own goal and kind of destroy one of those places that makes life worth living. I admire the pragmaticism that's been displayed. I know the township is looking to acquire a parcel next to Ashburn Field, Richie Ashburn Fields. That one's being sold by a developer. That would be great for additional parking there. I recommend going there to the Saunders Woods. There's a wonderful trail that perhaps rivals the Wissahickon. Goes by the Henry Foundation. But all I'm asking is that all I'm asking is that we return to the kind of learning, not kind of end that wonderful kind of community engagement and the kind of initiative of students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chorwish.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Brody from Bala-Cynwyd. So I first want to begin by saying thank you. Thank you for having a final solution to the Healthy Start Times. I know it's been a long time, and I know I've been up here and I've done emails or whatever, and I've commented just asking questions, but not always the squeakiest wheel, right, always speaks, right? Sometimes just the thankful wheel speaks. So, I really want to thank the board, the administration. I really do believe I saw a change with Dr. Moomin's lead in how we were approaching this, and I think we kind of saw that through, and hopefully it continues, just saying. I also want to thank Lisa, Amy, and the huge community group that really pushed this eons ago to make the start and for a resolution tonight. So I think it's a huge community win. But, Ms. Schaefer, as you said, like every day, you, the administration, the board work ongoing to make the health, safety, everything, the education here in Lower Merion better and better, right? And that's what it is, right? We're just making it better and better. And I've noticed communication has changed over the past year, right? You're informing us more. And I'm going to end on this. The last day of school was a fun one, right? I have a Kinwood kid, right? 3rd grade. He came home off the bus, and I said to him, did you ever drill that? No, we never drilled it. But he goes, but Mr. A knew what he was doing, and he had us, right? And I think that's important, right? We're doing the right things. We're just wanting to do more and more every day. So I just, again, want to say thank you. I want to recognize everyone, and I'm sure there's more tomorrow. But take the win today. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Brody.
Ruth Jenkins and Sarah Thomas and Isabel Melvin.
My Lorax speaks for the trees. Ruth Schenken, and I live in Wynwood. I have 4 items tonight, so I'm going to talk quickly. Item number 1, the group that chastised the little Palestinian child last week, 2 weeks ago, does not speak for the Jewish community, and neither do I. And I think that we have spent so much energy on equity and inclusion, and we need to encourage the diversity of all of our groups in our schools. Number 2, the volunteers that live in our community and have difficulty supporting themselves. I'm very much in favor of the tax rebate that will go for the firefighters and the volunteer ambulance drivers. They're here to help us. I also brought with me some comments from my neighbors. I am a member of the Wynwood Civic Association, and my neighbors, all very large group of them, 12 to 15 families, send their children to Penn Valley Elementary School. And there have been several complaints from them about the school. Crowded classrooms, poor teacher retention, consistency, lack of parent-teacher updates, inconsistency with kindergarten graduation. And I'm going to leave this printed sheet here with you to deal with it. Whoever works with the principals in the individual schools, I know that one of you does that. My last minute is on Oakwell. And I think that if we would talk to the soccer players and the baseball players of the future, when they come back to Lower Merion and see that Oakwell is still standing there and that it represents the majesty of nature, and they were willing to go someplace else to play soccer and baseball, I think they'll be grateful to you for preserving that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Sarah Thomas, Wynwood. Tonight I am speaking on the topic of the allocation of district funds as it relates to Healthy Start Times and the Oakwell property. For the past few months, the district has worked to finalize a long-awaited plan to push back the start time of schools for our adolescents so that they can get the additional sleep that the science says they need. As has been stated many times, the science says that adolescents need more sleep. What has rarely been mentioned is that we have adolescents in our middle schools as well as our high schools. And while the new plan provides a later start time for our high school students, it does not do so for our middle school students. So the plan that sits before you today will improve sleep for about 1/3 of our student population. I know that a 2-tier bus system is currently a pipe dream in our district, but what could the addition of 28 vehicles do to support healthier start times for all of our students? The April monthly board meeting included a presentation on transportation that stated we currently use 28 vehicles to provide routes to 70 non-public schools daily. What if the district outsourced these routes, which would free up these 28 vehicles to be used to transport students who attend schools in our district? I know it is not enough vehicles to get us down to 2 tiers, but it should be enough to shorten bus runs and possibly cut down on the 40-minute window we currently have between start times. I know this idea has been explored in the past, and the cost was estimated to be $1 to $2 million per year. In present day, the cost is more realistically $3 to $4 million per year. The district did not have a problem spending $12 million for the purchase of the Oakwell property, with an estimated additional $20 million in construction costs to build fields on that site. We are talking over $30 million just to build fields that would support no more than 200 students. $30 million could provide 10 years of outsourced busing for our non-public school routes and free up 28 vehicles for our own use. During these 10 years, our school board can work with other districts to push for a change in the PA Public School Code legislation of 1949 that currently requires us to bus students to non-public schools within a 10-mile radius of our borders. If we have $30 million available to spend on the fields at Oakwell, what is the maximum cost our district is willing to spend to improve school start times for all 8,500 students? While our funds are not unlimited, our ability to think creatively about how we use those funds should have no limits. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Isabel Melvin, Amy Noor, Lisa Prosnitz, and Catherine Kurtz.
Welcome. I have copies of my remarks. I'll give them to you. On March 17th, sure, Isabel Melvin, Winwood. On March 17, 2023, Philadelphia Inquirer reported that SEPTA canceled $3 billion rail extension to King of Prussia. They realized it was not prudent, not cost-effective. They canceled the King of Prussia rail extension. SEPTA has decided to spend the money on improving existing infrastructure. Lower Merion School District can do the same as SEPTA, cancel the taxpayer-funded $23 million for the degradation of historic Oakwell for playing fields and use existing infrastructure. It's a waste of my hard-earned dollars. Lower Merion School District can do the same as SEPTA, cancel. Here's how Lower Merion School District could spend $23 million of taxpayer dollars. And I highlighted it in blue if you don't want to read the other. Suitable places for ball fields include flat, dry lands at parks and schools, parking lots, and defunct retail, of which Lower Merion has an abundance of, not the wetlands of Oakwell. Purchase properties abutting Black Rock Middle School. No busing needed. Configure access to the existing full-size soccer field at 2000 Montgomery Avenue. Little or no busing needed. Build playing fields atop the Black Rock Middle School parking lot, previously dismissed as cost prohibitive, but now we have this money if we don't go through with this playing fields deal. No busing needed, and it sets a stellar example, just like Shipley. Reconfigure Arnold Field to optimize its use. This was planned in 2015, freeing up other field options. Put resources into urgently needed healthy start times and full-day kindergarten. Let's have the courage to walk back our decision to build playing fields at Oakwell, just like SEPTA did. If SEPTA did not reset $3 billion of the taxpayers' hard-earned money, Lower Merion School District can cancel the degradation and destruction of historic Oakwell. Congratulations, Dr. Yanni. Welcome. We're starting fresh, clean slate, new beginning. And you know you acknowledge Oakwell is not the best place for playing fields. We've heard that. Be like SEPTA, cease and desist this waste of taxpayer dollars. And I have copies of my remarks. May I? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amy Noor. I live in Penn Valley. I have 3 children who graduated from Harriton in 2012 and 2018. I've been coming here for 10 years to speak about start times, and I'm delighted that this should be my last time at the podium on this. I really want to echo the thanks that others have stated. I want to thank the district staff that has worked so diligently on the logistical issues, with a particular thanks to Ms. Schaefer for her leadership over the past 6 months and really her involvement over the last at least 10 years that I have been involved. Thank you to the school board directors for moving this issue from study to implementation in 2024. Moving our high school start time a full hour later is a game changer for the health and welfare of the high school students and by extension for our entire community, particularly when considering mental health, risky behaviors, and driving safety. And a particular thanks to Ms. Klein for the many years that she has been involved in coming to the monthly Regional Adolescent Sleep Needs Coalition, which is comprised, you've heard about this many times before, I believe, but comprised of about 30 school districts in our area, some of whom have changed some start times, some of whom are working on changing start times, and we all learn from each other. And I really appreciate your coming and listening and asking questions and learning, because it has helped, I think, move this entire process along to where it has finally ended. I also just want to acknowledge the many who have had a significant role in this effort. Starting back in 1999, the parents who came to the school board with Penn sleep medicine physicians to advocate for later start times for high school based on the science, to Dr. Christopher McGinley and the Interschool Council Board, who brought the national expert, Dr. Judith Owens, here in March 2014. The first time an expert, and we got the one who wrote the American Academy for Pediatrics policy statement on it later this year, who spoke in this area, and then schools started changing. I want to thank Dr. Wagner-Marseille, who authorized the 2015 ISC Sleep Task Force and the High School Student Sleep Survey. I want to thank Ellen Keefe, who was my right hand in all of that work at the time, and two former school board members, Diane DiBonaventura, who spent 20 years on the board advocating for later high school start times, and then David Fetterman, who advocated for the same. And finally, I want to thank Lisa Prosnitz, who took the lead in 2018 and elevated the community engagement and advocacy to an entirely new level, and to the many parents and students over the years who have been coming to the school board meetings consistently to request healthy start times. Thank you. It has been a long road, but we are finally there. I think after the first year of implementation, the high school students are just going to be awake and healthy and happy, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Knorr.
Lisa Prosnitz, Kathy Kurtz, and Beth Randall.
Lisa Prosnitz, Penn Valley. Looking forward to welcoming you, Dr. Yanni, to Lower Merion School District. We are thrilled that you will be here. I'm not going to go through the whole list. Amy, I think, covered everybody, but I did want to thank you, Ms. Schaefer, and the administrative team for finding alternate number 4. I recognize that there are compromises, but believe this option will give all of our students the greatest opportunity to sleep with the least amount of disruption to their existing schedules. This is a huge win for our kids. As Amy mentioned, their mental health, their learning, decision-making, athletic, physical recovery, their driver safety. There's so many benefits that they're going to experience, and I'm really thrilled about that. I also wanted to express my gratitude to you, Lucy, and the rest of the school board, and the many parents and community members, some of whom are here tonight, whose shoulders I've been standing on. And yes, especially Amy Knorr and the Interschool Council for bringing Dr. Judy Owens to Lower Merion School District in 2014, for mentoring, supporting, being an amazing ally, friend, and advocate for our kids. And that was really what started this regional wave. So kudos to you. I know the work is not done, but this really is a moment to just take and breathe and celebrate. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnitz.
Kath Kurtz, Beth Randall, Peter Bittinger, and then Jennifer Eckert.
Deborah Robbins, Villanova. Welcome, Dr. Yanni. And a big thanks to Ms. Schaefer, who has navigated through some very turbulent waters these months. And I really appreciate what that must be, the tremendous responsibility and gravity of that. I'm here again advocating for Oakwell. And as I sat here listening to how the Healthy Start Times has finally reached fruition, what I hear is loads of compromise, and everyone is inconvenienced to a greater or lesser degree. achieving success. This is what we ask in terms of preserving Oakwell. What we have heard is that to have after-school sports, particularly in the winter meeting about the bus service, how many bus rides, the complicated pattern of the bus rides, how much time it takes. Okay, those are inconveniences, but the greater priority is the kids are getting what they need, and we don't want to take that away from them, but again, it's the principle of everyone being inconvenienced somewhat for a greater goal. And I will walk you back to the past when we used to talk about stuff like trees and air and water and wildlife, which didn't gain a lot of traction in this room, unfortunately. But, and not to be adversarial, who was not horrified when we had to put our masks back on 2 weeks ago, when the Phillies couldn't play? There is still real relevance to our concerns for saving every tree, for making every effort so that our kids don't have to cancel their games because the air is 400 or greater in its air quality. So it's a sincere effort. We would love to help sports groups find other ways. I think that's really more something that the township can help with. And we'd be happy to roll up our sleeves too, because our group does a lot of investigating and homework. But still, the principle is the same, that it's compromise for a greater good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. I would like to ask that we continue to go in the order that people signed up, in the order that Ms. LaPera is reading the names, please.
So I'm assuming Kath is no longer here. So we have Beth Randall, Pete Bittinger, Jennifer Eckert, Marion Williams.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Peter Bittinger, and I live in Marion Station. So I'm talking regarding Oakwell tonight. So I'm not going to rehash the environmental concerns, which I think are valid. I just wanted to give you a little bit different perspective of a Lower Marion parent of a high school student athlete. I'm a very active parent for the tennis team. I go to all the matches, all the away matches, and I can say just from experience that the Lower Marion High School tennis facilities are not up to par with like the other high schools in the district. There's 4 courts, if you want to be generous, 5 for 60 kids that want to play tennis. A lot of the kids on the team, most of the kids get bused to South Ardmore Park. And if you want to watch the matches, the viewing area is like 6 feet below the court, so you're kind of watching the soles of the players run around, the soles of their feet. Despite all of the bare bones facilities, the team is remarkably successful, and the kids have an amazing experience. So the team has won the state championships 2021. State champions 2022, runner-up 2023, and I can speak from being a parent and being a part of all of this, watching it, the kids have really great experiences. Why am I telling you this relative to Oakwell? I think to give the kids a really great experience, you don't need new fields and new facilities. You can have a really successful team without all of that. And it's okay to bust the kids. The Lower Marion High School team, high school tennis team gets bused to South Ardmore Park as part of the experience. They have the great experience from the camaraderie. The coaching staff is phenomenal. I really want to give a shout out to the coaching staff and the athletic staff of Lower Marion High School. They're really amazing, and they're giving great experiences to these kids. So I think you can, give these kids a great sporting and high school experience without having to build these new facilities, and the busing to the facilities is really part of the experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer Eckert, Marion Williams, Charles Klein.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Jennifer Eckert. I live in Marion Station. I'm a teacher in the district, obviously a taxpayer, and a parent of 2 kids who have been through. One is still in the district. He's a rising 11th grader who you just heard about. That was the boys' tennis team. There was an assumption when he was speaking that it was the boys' tennis team that he was talking about. And I'm coming to speak about Oakwell because I, as a teacher at Black Rock Middle School, I've been trying to follow closely the status updates and the district's plans, and I'm confused because, to be honest, I know that the school district has taken possession of Oakwell, but I don't know what the district's plans are for the site. So I teach 7th grade English Language Arts at Black Rock Middle School. It's a fabulous school. I chose to go there after 22 years at Bala-Cynwyd Middle School, even though I was giving up a walking commute, because I wanted to go to a place where we were really going to build a special community from the ground up. So I want to share a little anecdote. I had a number of my 7th graders who played sports where they were bused to the fields in Gladwin. And I was curious. We spoke about Oakwell, and I was curious about their experience. And I didn't do a formal survey, but many of them said that they appreciated the time on the bus to socialize and to put their soccer socks and cleats on, and were perfectly happy with that. There was a number who would have liked more practice time, but there was not widespread complaining. I know that many of the students say that they would be very sad and upset if the district hacked away at an old-growth oak forest to build playing fields for them that they don't need or want. So this is a highly controversial project. Welcome. I think you're getting the gist of that. It doesn't have broad support. It's enormously expensive using taxpayer money. In my view, there are far more downsides than benefits, and I would ask you to improve communication on Oakwell and to move as intelligently on this issue as you did with start times, healthy start times, which is obviously really difficult, but to really engage the community, including students at Black Rock Middle School, and to just try to shine some light and not keep it hidden just because it's such a fraught issue. So I understand this is really difficult. I appreciate your leadership, and thank you.
Thank you.
Marion Williams, Charles Klein, and then Ezra Wood.
Good evening. My name is Marion Williams. I live in Bala-Cynwyd. As a resident of Lower Merion, I've paid my share of school district and other taxes. In exchange, my family has benefited from the education of 3 children through high school. It was an excellent education. At almost every turn, I was aware of the privilege of an abundance of resources. However, as a consumer of your services, I've also been aware that our tax dollars are not always equitably or wisely distributed. Perhaps the worst example that does not need to happen is the purchase of the Oakwell estate and its planned development into accessory fields for Black Rock Middle School. At the reported cost of $23 million, we heard an estimate of $30 million tonight, so I'm not really sure what it is. And this still unknown annual cost on top of that to maintain sports fields that are built on wetlands. Has the school board analyzed the cost per middle school athlete per year over the next 5 years, or over the next 10 years, or 20 years? Because the cost will continue to increase because this is a completely unsuitable site for fields. Have you compared that to costs for other school activities to evaluate whether you are distributing funds in an equitable manner? Have you compared the cost to the same costs in other school districts? When I talk about equity, I recall your February board meeting during which you approved a $27,000 expenditure for football uniforms. And I literally gasped because my kids, their sport was the robotics team, which stretched them in amazing ways and will take them much further than I'm sure perhaps many athletes might go after school with their sport. And $27,000 was more than the entire annual budget for the robotics team because we just don't have that level of support from the school district. Has the school board reviewed participation data on the sports for which it plans to build these fields? To spend such large sums, do you not need to justify the cost with some data? If you have, perhaps we don't know about it, so please share it. Is there any upper limit that the school board would consider a stretch, too much to pay for fleeting moments on a field for kids who have asked you not to build this in their names?
Thank you very much.
Charles Klein, Ezra Wood, Michael Levine.
Welcome, Dr. Yanni. Thank you, staff and board members for your service. It is sometimes a thankless task, and
If you could share your name and where you live in the district, please.
Charles Klein, Kenwood, Bell Kenwood. I come tonight to speak about Oakwell. We've established over the last 6 months to a year, as you will see in the record, the ecological, the historical importance, the gravitas of the site. But it has taken some time for us to establish what this is going to cost. And the more I learn over the past 6 months, the more convinced I become that the $23 million price tag is simply not a wise investment of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. Additionally, on the ground evidence suggests quite strongly that there'll be serious negative consequences for nearby stormwater management should we develop it. Multiple excellent proposed alternatives have been put forth, some discussed tonight. Too many for me to detail here. One, at the polo fields already announced, makes this project even less logistically and financially justifiable. Respectfully, I submit, I ask, it would be really helpful if we could have a robust, transparent public discussion of all proposed alternatives. Speaking personally, we have 3 kids, all LM grads. Hands down, they received a fantastic education. And yes, great schools include great athletic opportunities. At LM, our daughter competed at the varsity level. And when I asked her tonight about that, asked her about her experience, she graduated just several years ago, she echoed almost exactly the comments of the parent, the tennis dad who just spoke, about the camaraderie and the lack of necessity for incredible fields, incredible facilities, and the busing simply being a non-issue. Eons ago, I managed my own high school baseball team, and those experiences are of vital importance, no question. Oakwell is simply not the most cost-effective way to make them possible. In closing, as the PA school code restricts the use of education tax dollars to only school needs, and the need for Oakwell becomes less and less clear the more we learn about it. I urge the board to do what is best for LM taxpayers, LM students, and LM athletes. Preserve Oakwell and promote athletics by using our taxpayer dollars in the most effective manner possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Ezra Wood, Michael Levine, Mark Gershovich, and then Betty Lee Davis. Ezra, Michael, Mark, Betty Lee.
Is Ezra here, the first person you mentioned?
Ezra Wood, Michael Levine, Mark Gershovich, and then Betty Lee Davis.
Okay.
I don't think Mr. Wood is here.
Okay. So are you Edgar? I'm Mark. Oh, Mark, okay. I guess I'm next, because he's not, yeah, Michael, yeah. Greetings, board members, and thanks for listening. I respect that you're working on a weekday evening and have day jobs, and you all work really hard and have to listen to all of this, and I just want to thank you for your service.
I'm sorry, could you please share your name and address? Or name and neighborhood, please?
What's that? Oh, my name. Sorry about that. Yeah, my name is Michael Levine. I live in Narberth, and by the way, speaking of busing, my son from Narberth, he was bused to Belmont Hills, past 3 other elementary schools. He was bused to Welsh Valley, past Ballackinwood, and he was bused to Harriton, past Lower Merion, and he never complained. You know, he enjoyed all the schools that he went to. We complained when we found out about it, but he was fine. So anyway, I am a member of Preserve Oakwell. I took the tours and felt deep connection with the land, trees, animals, history, architecture. The idea of playing fields spoiling this sort of upsets me, and I applaud all the student proposals for an educational and environmental center. And I say this for full disclosure because I'm speaking to you tonight primarily as a taxpayer, not so much as an environmental or cultural enthusiast. We built a new middle school, I understand, for $100 million. Though it does have fields, we want to build auxiliary fields, which are estimated to cost $23 million, which is almost 25% of the first figure of the entire middle school cost for auxiliary fields. That's too much. When the polo fields came into play, the number of fields planned for Oakwell decreased to 3, meaning that the acquisition cost for a field alone would be over $4.3 million. And many construction costs are fixed as well. So the development cost per field, what is it, 5 million, 7 million? We don't know, there isn't a plan, but that's unacceptable. $7 million or 5 per field. We have constraints on our ability to get taxes. We need to redistribute it to other less fortunate school districts. And there are costs beyond acquisition and construction, as many people have said, like maintaining the 10,500 square foot mansion that's not slated for tear down. We need to maintain it, and we're a school district, not a property management or a land holding company. What about insurance claims when things go wrong? Kids get hurt at an activity, infestations. You have legal costs now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And anyway, the cost is unacceptable. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mark Gershovich, Wynwood, high school and middle school parent, and first time here after 10 years of kids in the district. And why am I here? Because I should have been here a month ago, but I read on a Facebook group about anti-Jewish actions at Gladwin, and I thought, what could it be? I grew up in the Soviet Union until age 7, and I still remember a kid in the courtyard said, "Hey, Jew, do you have any money?" Funny thing is, we didn't tell anyone that we're Jewish, and no one had any money. So I thought, what is this anti-Jewish thing going on here? I looked up, and it turns out an elementary school child, I assume between the ages of 6 and 10, showed his cultural heritage, a Palestinian flag and a map. Did he say anything bad about Jews? Not that I could tell. He just showed the flag and map and said he's Palestinian. A big kerfuffle happened here last month. Protesters came and asked you to, in effect, bully a child. So I don't know what they wanted you to do, to throw out the child's flag and map and say you're not welcome in Lower Merion. Well, as the lady out there, I don't know if she's still there, said, not in my name. And honestly, as a Jewish person, I don't think the publicity would be good for us either. I want to live here in Lower Merion in Pennsylvania in the United States in peace with my neighbors, whether they're Christian, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, atheists, Buddhists, Europeans, Africans, Asians, Jews, Arabs, Indians, Native Americans. I'm sorry, I left a lot of people out. But if our people have a conflict elsewhere, feel free to take it up in Washington or Harrisburg, but not by bullying a child in our schools. For example, I don't want a Chinese nationalist preventing a Tibetan or Taiwanese cultural display by a child. And vice versa, I don't want a Tibetan or Taiwanese parent preventing a Chinese kid's display that includes Tibet and Taiwan in their map, or Arabs coming to protest an Israeli kid. So anti-Semitism is real, but let's not cry wolf here, because we need all the allies we can get, and we don't want to push anyone off. And as this happened a month ago, I read in an Israeli newspaper that the heads of Israeli universities were protesting a proposed law to ban Palestinian flags at Israeli universities. So yes, today a student at Tel Aviv University is allowed to display a Palestinian flag. It's not my flag, I wouldn't hold it, but Tel Aviv University student is allowed to display it. But last month's protesters are asking you to be in tune with the most racist and nationalistic elements in Israeli politics. So thank you for ignoring them. And Ms. Buckman, I don't know, you don't know me, but thank you for calling them out in the notes from last month's meeting. It was quite a show in their Facebook posts afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Betty Lee Davis, Ann Foot, Mike Rota, and Claudia, I'm sorry, Claudia.
I next, Betty Lee Davis, yes, and I have this to the board. I'm Dr. Betty Lee Davis. Is this Mike? Can you hear now? And I have made previous comments and written communication to you supporting the preservation of Oakwell for environmental education and suggesting the use of its beautiful and calming grounds as a possible conference center for trauma-informed education for the district and possible revenue producer hosting trainings for other districts. As I've indicated previously, I know Oakwell well, as I lived in the Greenhouse Complex apartment, which was then called the Carriage House apartment, for 12 years as a tenant of Betsy and Jim Armour, owners of Acorn Cottage, for 30 years. In previous communications, I forgot to note that while I was a doctoral student at the Bryn Mawr College Graduate School of Social Work and Social Research, some years earlier, I also lived at Squirrel Inn, where I rented the mother-in-law apartment from the Armours, who lived at Squirrel Inn at the time. Spending almost 15 years living on the grounds of Oakwell and Squirrel Inn, I have a deep and intimate connection to the property and to the grounds. Tonight I've come not only to advocate for the preservation of Oakwell, but to share with you a small sample of photographs that I took in 1997 to 1999 while living there, to give you a glimpse of Acorn Cottage for any who may not have seen it then, and in the summer and winter while the Almers were its stewards, in the Carriage House apartment while I was a tenant, for you to see how much enjoyment I took in decorating its garden room, landscaping, and caring for its beautiful grounds and entertaining friends and family in its charming, unique courtyard. As you can see, the courtyard and the grounds then looked quite different from what they did a few weeks ago at my last visit there, where I found them untended, overgrown, and going to seed. From this small glimpse, you can see how beautifully the grounds in those structures lend themselves, if properly maintained, to educational classrooms, living laboratories, and wellness opportunities for students, school personnel, and possibly the community. I'll show you 3 large pictures, actually, which you can pass around. One is a delightful hummingbird that I called Anticipation in the courtyard. One is the first dawn of the new millennium outside of the courtyard at the Carriage House apartment. And this is of Acorn Cottage in winter. So for any who haven't had a chance to see it, these I'll pick up before I pass those. Of great significance is what Dr. John Bennett, Oakwell's former owner, was told in the days leading up to his departure by someone studying its environment.
Thank you very much for your comments.
May I please just make this one comment, that there was apparently a little brown bat that was identified on the property, which is an endangered species, and that I thought was important information to pass on.
Thank you very much.
Ann Foote, Mike Rota, Claudia Grabe.
Let me just get my notes out. Thank you, everyone. So I'm a father of 3 children, 3 under 3. My name is Mike Rauda from Villanova. I'm a father of 3 children, 3 under 3. So I'm in trouble right now with my wife because she's watching all 3 of them while I'm here waiting to talk to you. But it's an important reason, which is why I came. And so I'm actually, I'm here about Oakwell also. I am your target parent because in 10 years or so, hopefully my children may be at Black Rock. I live about a mile away from the school. And so I'm literally your target parent. But I came to you to advocate to not knock down Oakland. And, a few different reasons. One, you've heard the community outpouring and why the community supports it. Obviously, saving, heritage trees that are hundreds of years old, that will never grow back in our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes, would be a great thing to do if you could, But also, I think the situation has changed a little bit since the time that you bought Oakwell, because there's other properties that are a better choice for you right now. So right now, if you write down 1920 Montgomery Avenue and you Zillow it, it's 4.5 acres. It's right next to Black Rock. It's on a hill. It's not marshland. And they're open fields. You don't have to knock down trees. And it's $3 million, not 12. So you could actually sell Oakwell or sell it to the university or whatever you might want to do with it, actually get the money out, buy this other property for $3 million, which is already knocked down. You don't have to knock down the trees. It's already open fields. And the best thing of all is it's walkable from the school. It's only one row of houses separates 1920, the fields from 1920 Montgomery Avenue from the middle school. So kids can walk there. You won't have to bus them in the future and spend money on busing and everything. And it's safer too. As a parent, I'd rather have my kids walk 50 feet than to have them come around and with buses and everything in the far fields. So there's other alternatives like this one that would actually save you money, and you could even sell the building itself separately from the fields, and actually, of the $3 million you spend for it, you could probably get $2 million back by selling the building. So financially, it might be a better option as well too for you. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this to your attention because I think it might let you have the fields without having to cut down the trees.
Thank you.
Is Claudia? Okay.
Is there anybody else?
Hi, my name is Orsoya Lazar. I live in Marion Station. And usually I speak for the trees. Today I want to talk about finances. First of all, I want to appreciate and thank you for all the work that you put in for making the healthy start time possible, and the full day kindergarten and everything else you do. I serve on advisory boards as well, so I know how much work it goes into it. What I sorely miss from the conversation is the discussion about how to balance the budget. Everything was about increasing expenses in different ways for different reasons, but there's nothing about how we can balance it out by cutting or doing things smarter, better, differently to make up some of that difference. So I would like to consider that, and maybe would like the board to discuss, and I appreciate, Mr. Lee, your questions about staffing, and I think I'd like to see more of those conversations. Obviously, a huge expense is Oakwell. The purchase of the land was expensive, and developing it and future maintenance for the historic property will be really expensive, additional parking and everything else. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but the Lower Marion Township is going to discuss purchasing a property in Gladwin to increase sport field availability tomorrow at the board meeting. So you might want to consider that. In any case, there's a lot of sport fields available in the township. Based on our reviews, I questioned whether there had been any need assessment for sports fields, whether there been data collected, how the data was collected, and how recent the data is, because there had been changes in sport participation. Some of the sports are less popular now than they used to be. And some of the teams are combined that used to be, but maybe in the previous presentations from 2018, it was assumed that all the teams will be filled, and maybe that's not the case anymore. So the other thing to consider is that with all the pressing needs for spending more money on different things, including for the kindergarten and busing, maybe selling Oakwell to Villanova or any other party that can be a steward of the land as it's needed to maintain the gorgeous property. Maybe that would be the best solution, so that we would free up money to spend it on other pressing needs. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ann Foote, and I'm from Gladwin, and I just can't seem to fathom why there is so much opposition from the school board about preserving Oakwell. It's a mistake. So I'm going to just give a few comments, and they're going to seem very simplistic, but I hope they hit a nerve. Mistakes, we would probably all agree, are how we learn. We teach our children not to be discouraged or feel hopeless, but to realize they've learned something. School board, you can't make mistakes without doing things, and you guys are doing things all the time, and you're having ideas. So we cannot fault the school board for making mistakes, because everyone makes them in the process. The school board has been doing a lot and has a lot to do, and you're faced with so many issues that are very trying to you and the citizens. The real problem, or one of the problems, is people do not like to admit mistakes due to pride or determination, I'm not sure what. There may be conscious or unconscious motives that one doesn't want to acknowledge. There may be hidden motives. Maybe it's just that you've inconvenienced a portion of the school district with 30 to 40-minute bus trips, and somebody said, we'll do everything in our power to get sports fields to be near you. I mean, I'm just imagining that. Not admitting a mistake is a larger mistake. It takes guts to admit a mistake. Admitting we are wrong is courage, not weakness. And there's forgiveness if courage is shown. Admitting mistakes earns the respect and trust of the people you lead. There may be repercussions, but the loss of respect and leadership will not be among them. There's something inspiring about leadership who can come right out and confess their mistakes by acknowledging them publicly, clearly, without qualifications or blame. Stop the Oakwell development now. Don't make this thing go on and on. Find other locations and/or the necessity of needing more playing fields. Enlist the support, ingenuity, creative talent of the community to help you to align with your claims of sustainability and fiscal responsibility. Sports are important. Preservation of nature is important. Healthy start time is important. All-day kindergarten is important. Which of these affects the largest number of children positively and in the issues have the longest range and realistic goals? Not everyone will be happy in what decisions you make, but minimize the numbers that will be affected negatively. And I know where you can find the finances to do that. You didn't make the initial decision. Don't walk away and leave Oakwell problems to the next board. Leave a legacy of honesty, integrity to your long hours of service and to the students and families in Lower Merion School District. I hope you will.
Thank you very much.
I hope.
Okay, that concludes our in-person comments.
Thank you, Ms. LaPera. Mr. Roos, can you please read any public comments that were submitted via the chat feature?
Yes. Are you able to hear me now? Okay. Ezra Wood, Marion Station. Thank you for not having any school start before 8 o'clock. Allison Burnett, Marion Station. For those of us newer to the school district, it would be helpful if you could give some background on the history and current policy with kindergarten playgrounds. Recently, I attended the kindergarten end-of-year picnic at Marion Elementary, and all the families huddled inside the small fenced-in kindergarten playground. Being caged inside this tiny area, looking out into the expansive field, felt like a very odd use of space, and I was reminded that my kindergartner's recess had been restricted to this small space the whole year. With the expansion to full-day kindergarten, has the concept of a separate kindergarten playground been reconsidered? What is the rationale behind it, and is it valid? I'm concerned that our 5- and 6-year-old children will need more time for exercise if they are in school all day, and their movement will be unnecessarily restricted within the current kindergarten playgrounds, especially if more classrooms need to use them at the same time. Giving these students access to the regular school playground would also increase kindergartners' sense of belonging at the school. I know that facilities updates to the kindergarten playgrounds are being considered with the budget for full-day kindergarten, so this seems like a good juncture to pause and consider what recess will look like in a full day of kindergarten and if the current setup will meet their needs. Kath Kurtz, Narberth. I had to leave the meeting at 9 o'clock, but want to ask you to fully reconsider building anything at Oakwell. The compromise plan would compromise root systems of existing tree. The whole township needs Oakwell to remain the amazing site it is. Field space can be found elsewhere, as has been clearly demonstrated by student and Preserve Oakwell supporters. Stop this destructive madness. Our planet needs conservation of forest space more than additional playing field. Use the money for full-day K. I have about 3 more. Indira Gurub Hagavatula, Bryn Mawr. Just a quick note of thanks to the board for their hard work in developing the proposed start time schedule. It is a big step in the right direction. I am hopeful that we will see this implemented successfully and that we will see many tangible benefits the way other districts have, including improved attendance, engagement, grades, alertness, well-being, academic performance, health, and safety. I urge the district to set up the infrastructure to gather this data pre and post change so that we can contribute to scientific knowledge around this issue. I also hope that high school start time of 8:30 will encourage other local districts to follow suit. Thank you again for your many hours of time and effort. Janice Lipsitz, Marion Station. I continue to urge the board to build metrics into each program invested in to understand impact, course correct, and educate the community on value of investments and student outcomes. Thank you. Victoria Richter, Penn Valley, please save Oakwell. There is room to fill some of the sporting facility needs, but not all. The Lmsd board could do a lot of PR repair with the community by coming up with a creative solution and show our children that adults can compromise and still save this rare gem for the future. Thank you. The last comment is Jamie Baseman, Ardmore. Congratulations to Dr. Yanni. I have been speaking with other parents of children with disabilities in Upper Dublin, and they have shared how responsive and supportive you have been and how committed you are to inclusion and belonging. I also want to thank Ms. Schaefer for transparency, accountability, and humility shown over these last few months. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Roos. At this time, we will move forward with approving the agenda. The following recommended actions will be removed from the consent agenda for a vote. And the first is the appointment of superintendent of schools. Pursuant to Section 1073 of the Public School Code, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors appoint Stephen Michael Yanni, PhD, or EDD, as superintendent of schools for a 5-year term to commence August 14th, 2023, and end exactly 5 years after date of commencement. It is further recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the employment agreement between the district and Dr. Yanni in the form attached. I normally ask if there are any questions from the board. I did want to take a moment and say that the board is extremely excited that you'll be bringing your experience as a dynamic, caring, and thoughtful educational leader to the Lower Merion School District. His deep commitment to ensuring excellence in education for every student, every day, alongside his dedication to building community connections, reflects what is most important to this community. During our search process, we were privileged to interview numerous highly qualified candidates. Dr. Yanni stood out thanks to his proven track record in areas including fiscal responsibility and educational equity and inclusion. Among his many professional accolades, in 2022, he was the recipient of the Patricia J. Cregan Award from the Pennsylvania Education for All Coalition for his commitment to inclusive education. I want to thank personally all of the community members, staff, and students who participated in our search process. Hearing your voices, areas of interest, and concerns were invaluable in helping us create a profile to choose a superintendent who will lead our district and community into the future. I also want to take a moment and express the board's deep appreciation to Megan Schaefer, who has served as our acting superintendent since January. Ms. Schaefer stepped into this role quickly and seamlessly with much compassion and empathy for our students, families, and staff, and has moved forward important initiatives. Most notably tonight, I'll pull out the school start times, something that you brought to the board in January, and here it is in June, and we've been able to move this forward. So thank you so much for that. And we are incredibly fortunate that Ms. Schaefer will continue to serve as our district as assistant to the superintendent. Once Dr. Yanni officially starts at the beginning of the school year, he'll be hosting a variety of welcome events so that students, staff, community members can get to know him, and so that he can directly hear from all of you. So that information will be spread widely when that is all put together. So, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion.
I just want to thank the board for your trust in me. I'm very humbled to be here, and I look forward to getting started. I hope that the announcement during the middle of a tornado watch last week doesn't foreshadow my time in Lower Merion, but I truly am so thankful for your trust in me, and I look forward to getting to know all the administrators, teachers, students, families, and community members over the next couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orlando, could you please read the next 3 items? Individually.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors adopts the 2023-24 budget of the Lower Merion School District for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 per the attachment, which sets the tax rate at 32.3948 mils by adopting the attached budget resolution, and further that the board adopts the attached real estate tax resolution, and further the following resolution as adopted, and they are number 1 through 7, as well as authorizing the business manager and assistant to the superintendent for district administration to carry out the necessary actions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors adopt the attached PA 1000 rebate resolution for qualifying citizens effective for the 2023-24 fiscal year.
Any questions from the board? Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors adopt the attached volunteer fighters and other first responders resolution for qualifying citizens effective for the 2023-24 fiscal year.
Any questions from the board? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Now, I have a motion to approve the remainder of the agenda via consent.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Now, do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Mr. Roos, can you please give a report on the Sunshine Act?
Yes. The board met in executive session on June 4th and June 10th regarding personnel matters, the selection of superintendent, and also on June 20th today for the annual school safety security report required under section 1309A of the school code.
Thank you, Mr. Roos. Our next upcoming board meeting date, which will be held at 8 p.m. here in the DAO boardroom, will be on Monday, July 17th. It's the regular business board meeting. As I mentioned earlier, the only committee meetings that meet over the summer are facilities and purchasing, and that'll be on Thursday, July 13th. Hope everyone has a great start to their summer, and there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.